This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Joe Brown's honor to be back on the show. A lot of things happened this past weekend with the March for Our Lives and the fallout from that, as well as what was going on with the president. There's always something in the news going on with Trump. But I want to talk to you about what your thoughts were about the March for Our Lives and your thoughts about this issue of gun control.
Well, all right. Let me say this. It sounds somewhat specious, but there is a reality. These kids claim that they have a right to be safe. It is an extension of this disgusting entitlement that I see in this generation where everything should come to them because they want it. You have no entitlement to be safe and live on the planet Earth. You can get hit by an asteroid, meteorite. You can get wiped out by a tornado, typhoon, hurricane, tsunami. You can get wiped out by a volcano. You can get wiped out by lightning strike, if I haven't already said that, earthquake. You can get hit by hail. You can get bitten by something. You have no safe environment. It is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is history shows that unless you're willing to meet aggression with force to resist it, you are not safe. So there are people that died so that you could be safe, so they feel entitled to safety, but they don't want to put back in it. So they want to rely on what to make them safe? Oh, the police? Well, guess what? Maybe some of their same fellow citizens who have a deep suntan might find that they don't want to call the police when they need to be safe because instead of being protected, they get wiped out and brutalized and killed because they had a cell phone. All right? Hey, some people have a different situation. You talk about let's get the guns out of the way, and what did you do? You still haven't gotten the unmanned retreatants who didn't have a dad around or a society around that would put man training in them so they could control the violence. You see, 50 years ago, I can remember when the cry was war is a man thing. So the way to stop it is to raise boys like girls so they'll just be emotional instead of being violent. Well, they've gotten that kind of society. They've emasculated the republic. It's already been, endemic in our neighborhoods. That's a matriarchy. There are no guys around. There's no dad in the pad, and that's bad. But, well, what they've gotten is what they asked for 50 years ago in one way or another, and that's not good because here we are talking about violence. You see, this man training that people talked about produced toxic masculinity was also the device that socialization and acculturation of the human developed and evolved in lockstep with human physiology as it evolved. So you take the apex predator on the planet Earth that kills better than anything else that lives here, and you put in his own head the main control factor by appropriately socializing and acculturating. It's like that old Star Wars thing where Yoda's riding on Luke's back and he's whispering in his ear, a Jedi stays strong, a Jedi controls his anger, he must. A Jedi does not go to the dark side of the Force. A Jedi is not emotional. A Jedi controls himself. A Jedi is interested in the many. You see, you change Jedi to man, and that's what you're supposed to get when you get man training. Somebody, mom, who is also able to put into this, like the Spartan mothers did. They said, son, come back with your shield on it, do or die, because she perceived that she had an interest in the outcome. The people needed protection, and her son was growing up to be one of the protectors. Men protect and serve. Women are a resource. Women and children in the lifeboat first. That's the way it goes. That's our task in life. We can get violent, but you see, our man training is supposed to acculturate and socialize us so we do not get violent in an inappropriate situation and we become men of peace. But when necessary, we can, when called upon, behave bravely and courageous. Now, I'm looking at this thing here, and I just started thinking about some of the logical conclusions. People were talking about violence. Let's look right back down to Florida. This was yesterday. Some youth went off and killed somebody else. No reason to do it. You know what he used?
What?
Baseball bat. He didn't use a gun. That's another example. You got a cretin that's out of control. He can go Stone Age on you. Did you see this thing in the news where some dingbat principal doesn't want armed teachers, but he's installed in each classroom a bucket full of river stones / rocks so the kids can throw rocks at somebody if they come in there to try to shoot them up?
Yes, sir.
Then there is the real bottom line to this whole thing. The military's got a saying. It says, bullets kill a lot of people, but only high explosive kills enough. And most of the casualties in any war since the Napoleonic days, most of them are the result of artillery. And guess what the main artillery is in U.S. howitzer and cannon shells and for most of the rest of the world? It's in part, you know where you can buy it? Go to your home and garden store, and it's the most common fertilizer in America. You can buy 25 pounds of it for about $10. It's called ammonium nitrate. It's exactly what Timothy McVeigh used 200 pounds of to blow up the courthouse in Oklahoma City. He got 250-some people. So there are no controls on that. You don't need ID. Just walk it by it. Sheriff's department around here, when they want to blow something up, they go to the lawn and garden store down 3rd Street, or is it, down Thomas, I think, and they buy 25 pounds of fertilizer and they go blow it up. So if you take the one tool away, that doesn't change the cretin who can go to something even more dangerous. Now, if you want to talk about numbers of kids getting killed, I've got a proposition. That so many more of them get killed by bad driving and immaturity behind the wheel. Let's raise the driving age to 21. Let's make the first driving test a lot more detailed and strict so we can cut out those who are bad drivers. That will promote ecology, the use of public transportation, and keep the kids out of mischief since they don't seem to have the maturity to control themselves these days. And as I said, let's ban cell phones for those at least those that have a text function. You have to be over 21 because why? So many of them want to commit suicide because somebody texted them something that got them bent out of shape. They're weak. And, oh, heavens no, they want to exercise this prerogative, this entitlement to be safe. Well, let's make them safe. So it gets kind of crazy. Now let's get back to this fundamental thing about assault rifles. See, this is sheer propaganda, and it's misleading. There aren't assault rifles out there on the streets. Let me be clear. The first qualification for a real assault rifle is that it is a full auto machine gun. If it is not a machine gun, it's not an assault rifle. Full automatic weapons for the military come in three types: full service, light, or general purpose machine guns. They fire what used to be known as a full power rifle caliber. 7.62 NATO or old 30 AUD-6 or 7.92 Mauser or 303 British. You have to make that weapon pretty heavy, like the bar that the U.S. Army used to use in World War II, World War I, or the British Bren gun. They weighed 19 going on 20 pounds. It took that much weight for it to be controlled. Then on the other end of the scale, you had submachine guns that fired pistol caliber ammunition, like 45 caliber Thompson, the 9mm Schmeiser, or MP5 or Uzi. Those are called submachine guns. In the middle, you had a new thing called the intermediate cartridge. It was halfway in power between a full standard rifle cartridge and a pistol cartridge. And that is a cartridge of reduced power that allows it to be fired full auto in a weapon that weighs from maybe 6 to maybe 8 or 9 pounds and controllable by the average soldier. The first assault rifle was named that by one and only, none other than Adolf Hitler. They had come up with this thing in 1943, and the German army was issuing these things to its troops, and they called it MP-43, machine pistol or submachine gun, 1943, to hide it from Hitler. He got wind of it. He was storming about it since he didn't approve of the concept. But when he went out, they let him fire it, and he fell in love with it, and he said, this is a new thing. This is the Sturmgewehr. In other words, the storm rifle or assault rifle. Hitler named it. And once he named it, they changed the designation from machine pistol 43 to Sturmgewehr 44. And it fired a reduced caliber 7.92 Kurtz round. It's quite similar to what the Russians use, their 7.62 by 39 Komblok round. The Russians had actually invented that round and had what was a semi-auto weapon that fired it, so it was easier to control than the U.S. Army's M1 Garand. Now that, understand, is a rifle that the great General Patton called the best battlefield implement ever invented. But now I'll get back to that in a second. Mm-hmm. Russians came up with the AK-47. The U.S. did not get the idea, and they wound up adopting a turkey known as the M14 that you can buy now, civilian-wise, called the M18. Nobody objects to that. It's a full-powered rifle, but very few people can control it in anything other than semi-auto, and the U.S. Army never issued it in anything other than semi-auto. It takes a 20-round magazine. The M1 Garand took an 8-round magazine. However, in 1908, Browning and Winchester started selling the Model 8, which was invented by John Browning. And it took a 5-round clip with 15, 20, and 30-round clips available through the mail 100 years ago. It was quite popular with law enforcement and with the ordinary hunter. In the 1950s, Remington came out with the 740 Game Master, which is semi-automatic, 30 caliber. It's a heavy caliber. It ordinarily comes with a 5-round magazine, but for 60-some years, you've been able to get 10 and 20-round clips for that thing, or magazine. Now, guess when they came up with the AR-15? They came up with that thing in 1952. That was 55 years ago. It is the oldest serving rifle in U.S. military history, the longest serving one. Now, the thing about the caliber of the AR-15 is it's a 22 caliber rifle, and there has been a long debate in the U.S. military in that particular caliber in the hunting world is suitable only for varmints, rabbits, squirrels, gophers, groundhogs, and general stuff like that. In most states, it's considered too small to hunt a 100-pound deer with. The military says it doesn't have enough stopping power on one half of the field, and the other half says we don't want it to, because if we took the old-time stuff, you could kill somebody quite easily with that, and you just leave him there and rot. But if you will wound somebody, it takes 8 to 9 to 10 people to take care of it. We'd rather wound. So there has been that internal debate about the 5.56 by 45 NATO cartridge, which in civilian guys is known approximately as the 223. It's a 22 caliber thing. Is most suited for farming, not people. And if you really wanted to do some damage to somebody, you'd get a 12-gauge pump shotgun. Now, if you have practiced with a 12-gauge shotgun, a pump, you can do some very, very interesting things. I've seen people do this, and I can do it personally. If you've got low recoil buckshot, and you really know how to work a pump, and you work with it a lot, you can get 5 rounds off with all 4 empty cases still in the air before the first one hits the ground. It sounds like a machine gun when you do that, but it's not. It's an old-time pump. And remember when we come out with the pump, Winchester came out with the thing in 1892, and then they had a famous one that went for a long time that came out in 1897. That's been more than 120-some years ago. So we're not talking about anything new. I have seen people with a revolver. They've got a guy named Jerry Mikulik with Smith & Wesson. He's a demonstration shooter. He can take a revolver and get off 8 shots on target in less than a second. It just goes, boom, sounds faster than a machine gun. It's firing faster than a typical military machine gun. He just did it with his finger. He can't fire a 45 auto, semi-auto that fast because the mechanism can't keep up with his finger. I've seen people who with a semi-auto shotgun, Browning number 5, that's 110 years old, I've seen them work it so fast on the trigger finger, the action can't keep up with it. I can work an AR with my fingers, no additional stuff on it. I can get 7, 8, 50 shells up in the air before the first hits the ground. Well, most of the time, 4 or 5. But, you see, that's with anything. I've seen a guy do a demonstration with an 1873 single-action Colt and 45, fanning this thing, get 5 shots on target in less than a second, draw the second one, and get another 5 shots on target. That's 10, so he's got 10 rounds on target in under 2 seconds. Now, what are you going to do about that? And then here's the other thing. I've taken martial arts for 50-some years. There are a number of people in this town I know that have been taking it for a long time. A very good, close and personal friend of mine that worked as an executive on the show. He is a grand master. We can walk in someplace and kill you very quickly, very quietly. Nobody will know, and there's nothing you can do about it unless you have the level of expertise that we do. And we go into schools all the time and talk to the kids, but we don't kill anybody.
Right.
See, I saw a magazine at a magazine stand not long ago, and it was just, it was horrified that 12 and 14-year-old boys in the Middle East were coming to school with AK-47s and a ceremonial knife stuck down in the front of their belt, and actually one of them had 2 hand grenades hooked up and spare magazines. So they were horrified that these kids were armed. But I looked at it and I said, oh my, they come to school with real, fully automatic machine gun type assault rifles. They don't kill each other. We can't let kids go to high school with a nail file because they might take somebody out. What's the difference? It's man training. Now, let's do another bonking. AR does not stand for assault rifle.
Okay.
In 1952, a guy named Eugene Stoner invented the design, and he patented it. He sold the design to Fairchild Aircraft Company, which assigned it to their division of weaponry known as Armalite. AR stands for Armalite. Well, somewhat later, Colt bought it out. Bought out the Fairchild division. Now, they offered, in 1954, they offered the AR design to the U.S. Army, and they did not select it. They selected the miserable semi-auto, 20-round magazine, 7.62 caliber M14, which they kept for 6 years before they got rid of it. Well, 1962, General Curtis LeMay, United States Air Force Commanding General, wanted the guards who were armed with M1 carbines to have something newer, because the M1 carbines that everybody has got in their garage or closet, if they're over a certain age, because you could get them for less than $10 through the mail. Well, he wanted his old carbines replaced, so he caused the Air Force to buy from Colt these AR-15. When the military got them, they became known as the M16. The current rifle for the military now is a carbine version of that, known as the M4. That follows in sequence behind the M1 carbine of World War II fame that everybody's got one of in their closet, or at least granddad does. And then there was an M2, which was a fully automatic version of that, not semi. And both of them took 15 and 30 round magazines. There was an M3, which was experimental, and the M4 is the current standard issue to the U.S. military. It has a 14.5-inch barrel, which is illegal to possess under most circumstances. What you can get is a semi-auto version that looks like it, but it's got a 16-inch barrel, or if it has a 14-inch barrel and a half-inch barrel, it's got a permanently affixed gadget of some sort on the muzzle to make it 16 inches from the base of the chamber to the end of the muzzle. The attraction to this design, which is now America's most popular rifle, it comes in all sorts of calibers, is that it is a modern rifle. The rifle that everybody associates with hunting is the bolt action.
Okay.
Mauser invented a bolt action way, way back when. And in no less than 1842, the Prussian Army adopted the first military bolt action. It was a pin-fire weapon. They called it the needle gun. Not pin-fire, it was called the needle gun, and the Prussian Army adopted it in 1842. Stored up enough of them to equip their army in 1848. So that's how old everybody's typical hunting rifle is. Now, the Winchester lever action is newer than the bolt action. But the bolt action was popular in Europe. America had the lever action, the Spencer, which is quite an effective weapon. They issued a lot of them in the Civil War. In 1892, the U.S. decided to replace its trapdoor Springfield single action, a single shot, not single action, single shot rifle. 1892, they replaced it with their first bolt action known as the Craig Jorgensen. It fired a caliber known as 30-40 Craig. They didn't like it because it wasn't powerful enough. When they got into, the Spanish-American War and got into the Philippines and got to dealing with the Moros, who didn't take kindly to it and ignored getting shot with it. So they sent over a lot of pump-action Winchester Model 97 shotguns to deal with the close-in threat. Now, again, that's probably the most dangerous thing you could shoot somebody with at close range. Let somebody go off with one who knows how to use it in a school, you'd really get a bloodbath. But, that's been around for 120 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what we get then is we have the Spanish-American War. The U.S. Army kind of got jacked around because the Cubans had a Mauser, the 1892 Mauser. So the U.S. liked it. They hooked up a deal with the German Mauser company to make one under license. It was known as the 30 caliber Springfield. They were paying the Mauser firm a license fee, which they stopped paying in World War I. But most hunting rifles that you see today are takeoffs off of the Mauser, the 1898 Mauser, which is what? 120 years old. Guess what? So if you want to get a perspective, if you look at all of the cowboy movies made in the 1950s, the black and white type, featuring John Wayne, Clint Eastwood et al., usually you see them using an 1892 Winchester. The perspective you should have is at the time they made these cowboy movies, that 1892 Winchester was a newer design than the AR-15 is today. It was only, 50-some years old. 56 years old. 57 years old. The AR is 65 years old. And it's just bringing it up to date. It uses modern manufacturing methods. People say, well, what about these high-capacity magazines that they have with it? Who needs 30 rounds? Well, they've had those same 20 and 30-round magazines available on the American market for more than 100 years for various semi-auto rifles that have a lot more stopping power than a 22 caliber Stoner design. So when you hear AR-15, it's not assault rifle. You've got some people with an agenda that have the news, and they are pulling all sorts of stunts on you. Another, we all remember Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. Zimmerman, who matched the profile of an OG gangster. He was in his late mid-20s, and he had numerous assaults on his record. Well, he shoots Trayvon. So they start talking about Zimmerman exercised his right of no retreat. Something has to be changed about that. That's wrong. This is evil. And then you had all of the black and white pundits talking about, we need to change this no retreat doctrine. Well, guess what? In spite of Anderson Cooper having great credibility, which he does not deserve, it was not Zimmerman that had the right of no retreat. It was the dead kid, Trayvon Martin, who had the right not to retreat. What happened is he's walking peacefully down the street because his father is there visiting a girlfriend. He's minding his own business, and this OG gangster type, Zimmerman, who is a Cubano, who had a lot of violence in his background, approaches him, comes up on him, and attacks him. And Trayvon had no duty to back up. When they get to struggling and Trayvon sees the gun in Zimmerman's waistband, at that point he's being assaulted by someone he does not know with the ready and available means to render great bodily harm or death to him. Trayvon had the right under Florida law to take Zimmerman's life. He pounded Zimmerman's head into the sidewalk so Zimmerman would be disabled and unable to continue the assault. Well, at that point, Zimmerman becomes fearful for his own life, but you can't claim that when you are the one that put in motion what is developed into a life or death situation. But Zimmerman takes the gun and he shoots Trayvon Martin to death. And then you got a clown like Anderson Cooper misleading the public, talking about Zimmerman had the right of no retreat. They also came out with this castle doctrine, according to Anderson Cooper, and nobody picked it up. You don't have a castle doctrine unless you're inside a dwelling. And nobody was anywhere near inside a dwelling. You know what the Castle Doctrine developed, why it developed into a specifically stipulated part of the law? Because they had cases where, let's say, the homeowner is upstairs and early in the morning hears somebody break in. He goes down and he finds somebody burglarizing his home. He pulls a weapon on them. The person falls. There was an actual case in Florida where the burglar fell, broke his ankle, and sued the homeowner.
Wow.
So the law was clear in Florida. That's not going to happen. But to make sure that some idiot realized that, they put it to Castle Doctrine. Somebody breaks in your house, you know, it's a good idea to check to see who it is so you don't bag one of your kids who comes home drunk from college one night unexpectedly. But, you know, you don't have to sit there and assure yourself that these people, oh my, you know, I don't know this guy, all of this other stuff. In the Castle Doctrine, you break into somebody's house, you're on your own. They're not liable to you. It's the law in most states. It just wasn't stipulated to in formal code, but it's been the law here. No retreat. Every state but 8 of the 50 states had a no retreat rule in their law on self-defense. 8 states had that, and they came up with stupid stuff like, okay, you're walking home with your mother-in-law, your wife, and 3 kids, and somebody goes to hold you up. Well, in a no retreat state, if you're armed or, you know, karate or something, you can do something right there and stop it. In one of the 8 states or so that had the retreat doctrine, you had to turn around and run. So what are you supposed to do? Leave your mother-in-law and your wife and your kids there while you run off and leave them? So they had all kinds of crazy little add-ons to the law that was given to the jury. If you find, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that the defendant in this action who has raised the defense of self-defense took as much as 1 step backwards, that is a retreat sufficient for the purposes of this statute. It gets worse. If you find that the defendant in this cause raised 1 heel as though to retreat, that is sufficient for the purposes of the law. So most states just didn't have a retreat doctrine. You didn't have to retreat. I was a criminal court judge and a defense lawyer and a prosecutor for years and years. And what happens, guess what the charge to the jury is? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant in this cause has no duty to retreat. He might have and stood his ground against his assailant with no liability or no diminution of his right to self-defense. That's been the charge in all these states, except 8 of them in the Northeast and the, what do they call it, the New England area that decided to come up with these new ideas. So here you have Anderson Cooper blathering away about this nonsense, so we need to change the Castle Doctrine, which had nothing to do with Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. We need to get rid of no retreat because Zimmerman didn't have the right. It was Trayvon Martin, and guess what else you should learn out of that case? Guess what they told Trayvon's mother, please not reveal, because it might undermine the impact of the case. They convinced her that would help out her son's cause, wrongful death cause. You know what they didn't want her to say?
What?
That Trayvon's grandfather, at the time he was slain, was a lieutenant detective on the Miami Police Department. So was Dad going to visit a lady cop. Now, wouldn't that make a different change in it? You see how they manipulate you? These low-down scoundrels that have a point to make, so we rely on them for accuracy of news, and Trump's got a great word, fake news. That's what he's talking about. So they have the whole public, and, you know, half of the system thinks OJ got away with murder. Well, guess what? I saw the evidence in the evidence room. Somebody I recruited to law school who was administrative law judge let me look through the whole thing at my leisure. I tape recorded every scrap of that case. They had no evidence on OJ. And there was a lot of evidence that implicated certain other people. The only reason you think OJ did something is because that slime bag, Nancy Grace, who was breaking into the media with her irresponsible self, started talking about devastating evidence against OJ when there was none. I said, well, what did they have against it? And then I tune in, and it's about the DNA evidence, and she's been talking about there's no way OJ's team can overcome this devastating evidence of DNA that clearly indicates he is the culprit. Well, I tape recorded it in my chambers. I was a bachelor. I wasn't going to fight this rush hour traffic because I'd stay a few hours and catch up on paperwork and look at this. What it said was the experts testified, the prosecution's own expert said, this isn't OJ. This sample here does not exclude approximately 96,000 people in the L.A. County area. What it indicates, somebody with a genetic background from, guess where? The northeast Mediterranean area or Sicily.
Wow.
And then they wanted to say OJ's blood was found on the scene, but that didn't go anywhere because even the state expert said, well, that couldn't have really been deposited there by OJ because it had our special brand of preservative we put in a serological sample we took from him with a hypodermic needle. And, oh, yeah, we do have to admit that that is, in fact, one of the forensic investigators who's got a sample of his blood in the evidence pouch. And for some reason, he brought it from the downtown forensics lab almost 30 miles back out to get to Brentwood, and he just happens to be walking in where the scene of the crime was. Oh, well, we can't really explain it.
Wow.
See, that kind of stuff was going on. But they mislead us. So they've got an agenda to push, and where that agenda comes in, you should understand. 50-some years ago, in the 60s, you have these things coming together. There was a Dr. Spock, nothing to do with Star Trek. He's a child psychologist. And he came up with the idea that it's wrong to thank children. You should never punish them. You should always reward them with unconditional love. Yeah, if you've got an hour and a half to explain to a kid why he shouldn't take a crayon and mark on the walls or get down out of a tree so he doesn't fall and break his arm, well, okay, yeah. But you see, that's ineffective and doesn't do the child any favor. So that was late 1950s to the early 60s. And then you have this thing that I call the beta boy phenomenon. That is white guys who were nerds and dorks and couldn't make it in the white man's world, even though they were white men. And they didn't like this, what they called outmoded model of masculinity. And then you had the feminists with a capital F, not feminine, but feminists, who have always struck me as hating the fact that the biological dice throw gave them two X's instead of an XY. And they just like men. And then you had the other type that thought of having a man or being in the institution of marriage was being in a condition of slavery. Then you had the LGBTQ crowd who was against the masculine imagery anyway for their particular reasons. And then you had these hippie types who were running around talking about, yeah, man, war is the man thing, or it's a man thing. Man is about war, and they were raised because the women have to raise their sons like girls, so they will safely vent their aggressions with emotion that can come out instead of holding it inside and being so tight, uptight, and under control. And then you started no war toys, no cap pistols. It's okay for boys to play with dolls. And unisex child rearing, unisex child dressing, unisex child hairstyles, and you can see that even now on these Liberty Mutual commercials, who are very much exemplars of some of the worst things in the country right now, but it's what it is. So all of this comes together, and that crew or part of it, wound up, interestingly enough, being attracted to the entertainment industry, the media industry, and they took it over in the late 60s when color television was driving the old-time, big-time movie studios out of business. They figured out that black people were getting that I'm black and I'm proud thing. So if they gave the black people some movies, they could get some fast, heavy cash flow into the Hollywood industry and save the studios. They did, so they put them in charge. And then people were going around still going, I'm black and I'm proud, wearing dashikis and afros. And then in 1971, 72, they came out with Superfly, which is just exactly like this movie Black Panther. And there were lines of black people 2 blocks long to get in to see that movie, all over the country. And then in 6 months, everybody was, man, I got to move some of this cocaine, man. Superfly, man. Yay, man. You check that out. And then everybody started pressing their hair like the hero in there, an actor played by an actor named Rod O'Neal. And see, the hero was a successful drug dealer. And they had pimp mobiles, hoes, and all this other stuff. They glamorized that. And you didn't see any more dashikis and afros. You started seeing fried hair again, fly girl, fly guy, and it went to hell. Now, you've got Black Panther, and I've looked at what they sent out to Viacom stockholders, and they were excusing the fact that Paramount, which is a Viacom subsidiary, did not produce this Marvel movie. And it was transferred to Disney because Disney was in financial trouble and they needed the money. And they're actually discussing with the stockholders how we need Disney's facilities as animators. So we need to save them. So the African Americans will flock to this movie in droves, and we will be able to get a record box office. It's scary that white people know us so badly that they can predict what we're going to come to see and put it right out there. So we do, and we're so proud. And yet when you go in there, the character Killmonger, who is a villain, is the one talking about third world revolution and uniting all minority and third world causes in the world and coming up as a power block to offset what has been done to them by the colonialists. They have an advanced technology that's about 500 years ahead of everybody else in the world, so they want to use it to set up Africa as a unified front so it becomes a world power. So what happens in the end of the movie? Oh, you're supposed to be good Negroes. Good Panther, the good king, decides to give all of this to the white world. After, and then the brother, they made a counterculture hero out of Killmonger. When he's dying, he says, just bury me in the sea with some of my righteous relatives killed themselves because they refused to be slaves and jumped off the boat. And we go in there and we go, you don't even understand it. We got a problem with no dads in the black community, so what do you see in Panther? All of the warriors are women. Okay? He looks stylish. They have on sleek gowns and everything else, and he's all vined out tuxedos. They go out to the club, and they walk in looking like he's a pimp and they the hoe. But then you listen to them, he's not really the king because the women are giving him instructions. Don't do this, don't do that, you're wrong, you can't do this. Well, if you want to be like that, what's this? And then they have a fight in the end. It's not black folk versus white folk or people of the enemy. It's one group of affiliated tribesmen against the women folk of the other. And the women portrayed as kicking the brothers in the butt.
You know that the Black Panther now is the highest grossing superhero film of all time domestically.
I know, ain't it a shame? And that's what they do.
That's a template now, right? That's a template. We got all these Amazon women, like Wonder Woman too. And Jedi.
Wonder Woman in Justice League. They have Superman, Batman, Mariner. They've got Cyborg. They've got the Flash. And guess who the leader is? Wonder Woman. They just started today on the military channel. New series, Women Warriors in History. How about somebody pays attention to motherhood again? I was in a restaurant yesterday, and I look up and this kid charges down the aisle over in the bar section at full speed. Then here comes another charging down the aisle. I was like, where are they going? I looked over the barrier. All of the women are just sitting there paying no attention to these kids charging through the restaurant, almost running over customers. They go back in the kitchen. And finally, the woman manager had to grab them and say, look, ladies, could you please, you can't have it. They just chilling. They just having a good time. You know, don't be bothering with them. You know, they ain't going to hate nothing. There's no order. You see, I love women. And firmly, I've always been of the opinion that it's our duty as men to protect womanhood and promote manhood. I got raised when I listened to the older men tell me, son, act like a man. Boy, men don't act like that. Boy, this is how a man acts. Boy, stop crying. That's nothing to cry about. So they told me we have a right to tell you how to act like a man and a right to demand that you do so because somebody demanded that we act like men. We got where we are because there were men, so you get where you are because there are men. You have a duty to the next generation to act like men and also a concomitant duty to demand of them that they act like men. That seems to have gone by the wayside. There's no dad in the pad, and that's bad. And that's why you get these little cretins going off in the hallway and these little gang-banging thugs that are going off down in the hood all the time. And you know what my definition is of one of these hood rats that likes to play OG?
What's that?
It's a lesbian in a boy's body.
I can see that.
A lesbian is raised as a girl, and she likes girls sexually, but she's got girl plumbing. These hood rats get raised by girls as girls. They like girls, but they've got boy plumbing. If a fairy godmother waved the magic wand and a lesbian woke up in a boy's body, there'd be no difference. Not getting on lesbians. If you want to do that, that's your business. But I just object to the fact that we have a limited pool of boys from which to recruit men. And once you recruit them, making men of them is a very arduous, ongoing task that has to start in infancy and go through until we die. We have to keep reminding ourselves of what it means to be a man. That needs to come from the voice of the village, the media. That needs to come from the neighbors, the neighborhood, the aunt, uncle, dad, granddad, relatives, friends, associates, and everybody. But we don't get it. They're still men, but they're bewildered because all of the media's telling them, no, that's not the way to go.
Have you read that New York Times article from last week? They talk about even if a black boy was born into a rich family, he still fares poorly in the world as a grown-up. Have you seen that? What's your take on that?
Okay, there's still a thing going on. Like, for example, everybody's heard of George Washington Carver, right? Great black scientist. You know, he got adopted by a white family. They had a daughter. So you know what they did the first day after they adopted him?
Yeah, castrated him, right?
They castrated him so he wouldn't bother the daughter.
Right.
We had a unit. That happens sometimes. It's ideation. You get the idea. So you can't escape what's on television.
Right.
The ideation you see for black folk on TV when they put us on there, what are you doing? You being a gangster, drug dealer. Yo, man, like Jamal, man, you like check it, man. You know, that's the imagery they get.
Right. You already got a reboot of Superfly. I forgot to tell you, have you seen the trailer for it? It's coming out this summer. They got the hip hop version of Superfly. You
got to be kidding.
I'm serious. They got Future the rapper doing the soundtrack like he's Curtis Mayfield, and instead of New York, it's in Atlanta. It's said in Atlanta.
You have to be kidding.
I'm not kidding you. Got those sir. Same old thing.
Oh,
New Superfly.
Yes. Guys, just destroy us.
Yeah. Black Panther come out now. We got the Superfly again.
And you know what's so bad? Also in this Panther movie, they've got some direct quotes from the Panther Party platform in that movie, and they make it something that the villain says. So the movie's named Black Panther, but the real actually existent Black Panther Party was composed of some brothers who were trying to make the black community safe from the predations of wrong-acting police, let's just put it that way. They actually blasphemed them by taking what they were saying, direct quote from the Panther Party mantra, and they were making them the words of a villain. Also, interestingly enough, the father of Killmonger is part of the royal house. But see, to help out black folk in America, he moves to the projects in America. So Killmonger is one of the few young guys who actually has a father in that area, and the father is trying to be righteous about it. He sounds like Malcolm X. So what happened? Here we have the show up of the good Black Panther's daddy who confronts his brother with, why are you trying to get people free instead of keeping what we have secret? Why are you trying to free up other people in the world with what we selfishly have been hiding? He says it's our duty. So guess what? The good boy Panther's daddy killed his brother, Cain and Abel, all over again because he wants to free the third world. So, of course, Killmonger is a little boy, finds this out, so he dedicates himself. So what is it? He's brilliant. He graduates from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology at 19 years old. He's a genius. He then decides so he can become a real badass. He joins the Navy, signs up for the SEALs, and he's so efficient at killing, they nickname him Killmonger. He is ruthless, yes, but so was Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. You know, Washington was the spy master during the Revolutionary War, too. So was Abraham Lincoln, so was Lenin, so was Trotsky, so was Stalin, so was Ho Chi Minh, so was Mao Zedong, so was Fidel Castro, so was Che Guevara, you name it, they act like that. So you got a real revolutionary trying to free the people. Mandela was like that. You take Jomo Kenyatta with the Mau Mau, he was like that. Here you got another one, and they make him the villain. They even put, and see if you are hip to history, you can hear some of the very quotes from these people that have been doing this put in the mouth of the villain. You have this subtle imagery where the audience is identifying with something that is actually negative to them. Don't be one of these Negroes or these militant blacks who's trying to get free. You need to be one of these good Negroes who gives everything to the outside. It's like we got our music stolen from us, a whole lot of art stolen from us, a whole lot of art stolen from us, stolen ourselves, and we didn't have the gumption to go die. But then you have Killmonger saying, I'm done. Just bury me in the ocean where the righteous jump off the boat so they wouldn't be slaves. And you got these black youth cheering for him dying.
Mm.
They're pulling. Come on, Black Panther, kill him, kill him. Like, fool, do you get the idea who's the good guy in this? That's like if they made a realistic movie about a Nat Turner or Mark Vasey, and you got black folks cheering for the slave master or the house members that turned him in.
Hey, you got some black folks like that.
Yeah, but that's what they engineered with what they did in the art. Absolutely pathetic.
I mean, yeah. Well, let me ask you this then. What do you think about what's going on with South Africa with the so-called land reform, taking the land back from the white South Afrikaners, what they call themselves, and giving it back to the people there?
Well, here's what's going to happen. So you have the multiple thefts there. South Africa is not a case of the white folk coming in and subjugating the Africans. What actually happened is there's a thing called the Bantu migration, where the Bantu, who are what we think of as African, got to South Africa about the exact same time the white Europeans got there. What lived there before both groups arrived were Aboriginals who look like the Australian Aborigines. They don't really have vowels and consonants. They tend to click when they talk and do weird kind of things. That is strange. So what goes on is the Bantu start conquering these indigenous people. The white folks start conquering them from the other end. Then Shaka Zulu arises, and he sets up the Zulu nation by dint of his superior war-fighting tactics and strategies and training and equipment. And the Zulu conquer everybody else. Then they run up against the white folks. And in 1876, at Isangawanda, the Tetsuweu, who was the high king of the Zulu then, his battalions whipped the crap out of the English army that was sent to subdue them. They didn't just do in 200-some people like Custer got done in by Sitting Bull. They wiped out multiple thousands of English soldiers. Wow. So it was a real hard-fought war, and the English signed a treaty with the Zulu that guarantees them the right of self-governance and to keep their own tribal weapons. Meanwhile, with the people that the Zulu and the Europeans had conquered, they practically got enslaved. They became the ANC with whom Mandela was associated. So the Zulus said, I'm sorry, we're not going to let Mandela and the ANC run us because we enslaved them, we whipped their butts. The Europeans said, oh, they have been enslaved, we whipped their butts too. So at this point, you had a situation that had been preceded about 100 years ago when the English took over South Africa from the Boers, who were Dutch. The Dutch had settled there first. So the English take all this land from the Dutch. And then what winds up happening, the English sign a treaty with the Zulu. All three parties, the Dutch, the English, and the Zulu, subjugate the rest of the Bantu and the Aboriginals in the area, few of whom now remain. So we have this poisonous thing coming up now. So there's a whole lot going on there that has not been resolved, and that's what's shaking out right now. Some people are going to die, and I guess they'll have to kill each other so they can get it out of their system. Now, I had the privilege of meeting the young man who is next in line to be the High King of the Zulu and of Swaziland, which has been their homeland, and they still control it, and his brother, half brother, who will be his prime minister. They're both going to grad school out on the West Coast, and they were working on their PhDs. One was going to UCLA, the other one was going to USC, and the deal was is when they got their PhDs, Dad would abdicate so they could take over. Now, both of them killed their lions at 13 with a wooden spear, no iron head. Before they can become king and prime minister, they have one final test to take. under supervised conditions. One of them will get an iron-tipped spear, and the other one will get a sword. They get to choose who gets what. And they will have to kill a Cape buffalo that is deemed to be the hardest terrestrial animal on the planet to kill. So the catch is if anything happens to the king to be, they just immediately execute his brother and start all over again.
What? Whoa.
The reason is so the brother can't arrange an accident, so he becomes king instead of the designated party.
Wow.
So they'll have to pass this test before they can take the throne. Now, they can talk American black. Yeah, man. Judge is cold-blooded, man. What happened? So and so. They can sound like that. Judge Brown, it is a shame that you do not have the time to come over and visit us in our country. We will make life very interesting for you.
Wow. So this is like Wakanda, like Killmonger's there, huh? He do that American Negro dialect. Okay.
Yeah, they can do both. And it's interesting. We were running around with them, and the American Secret Service was guarding them, so we pull up to this hotel. I mean, really exclusive LA type hotel. So they walk in, Secret Service is there, to make sure nothing happens, and they're looking. Thomas, look, this is such a nice anteroom to the toilet. Don't you have one like this in your palace? No. That's called what? It looks like the anteroom to our toilet in one of our vacation homes. You must come sometime. You will enjoy it. They're talking about the grand ballroom, right? I thought they were pulling my leg until they showed me one of these mansions they live in. I said, man, that's a nice luxury hotel. Oh, no. That is my brother's getaway palace when he has need to get away and do his homework, and so he can write his dissertation. Guys, you live there? Oh, that's in the judge about. You must come and visit. That's the tell me. Is it true, brothers, that all of the virgins in the country have to parade? Yeah, they must go naked in front of the king. We are too, since we is there. Father was urging us to pick a bride, but we said, no, we'll wait until later. 14th woman. He said, take a look at the pictures. We brought you something to look at. I said, oh, yeah. And see, the interesting thing is, it's not just the African women. Any woman under 22 is deemed to be, 24 is deemed to be a virgin. That includes the Asian and the European women. So in this line parading with ceremonial beads, which don't cover much of anything at all, stark naked are all these women, black, white, and yellow, and all kinds of mixtures, and fine as you can imagine, parading in front of the king, because that's part of the ceremonial thing they have to consent to if they go there. That's, man, y'all got it going on.
Wow. That's amazing.
And they talked about it too. I do not understand, Judge Brown. What is this diminution of masculinity that we see in the United States? It's like they have a phobia with being men.
What'd you say, Judge? Me tell them.
They were right. And they were in their early 20s.
Wow.
He said, I wanted to go see some of these gangsters. What do you call them, OGs? But they act like ill-tempered, rude women.
Wow. And these guys kill lions at the age of 13, so they don't, they ain't worried about it.
They ain't worried about it.
They kill someone's daddy at 13. The hell with it. Wow.
So, I mean, they had some negative things to say about what they saw.
What about the women? What do you think about the black American women?
They think they're rude, ill-tempered, ill-mannered, and totally out of control. And as mothers, they are not dealing with their responsibilities as mothers to ensure that their sons become proper men, warriors, and providers. And they've done that most egregiously by acting as sluts, by not having a husband, at least to start with.
do you think that black women who have children out of wedlock, they might, made a quote unquote mistake, but do you think they are they worthy of marriage?
No, sure. Accidents happen.
Mm-hmm.
How many times is it an accident? How many times does it have to be when it's something else?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's unfortunate about this? There is a tragic dynamic to this whole thing.
Okay.
This does not sound good, and I really feel sorry for anybody who actually is caught up in this. But a late friend of mine and I, 20-some years ago, he was with Memphis Housing Authority. We started looking up people, and he started running it through a computer where you could trace their background. And he found that people who had been in the housing projects for 4 or more generations, it seems that more than 90% of them were descended from slaves who lived on plantations that had 200 or more slaves living on that plantation, which meant they were breeding them. And what we came up with was that what you were looking at in terms of the behavior that goes on in the projects, and now so much in the black community, is essentially that of slaves who were breeding to increase the master's livestock. You weren't interested in marriage. Just have more two-leg livestock you can sell or work your land. Go breed indiscriminately. Or, and see, the other thing they would pick a stud, and the stud was usually supposed to be the slave preacher. So they would make sure that they would attend slave services so they could see which slave women got the spirit, got happy, and got jumping up and about, rolling on the ground. They were led to believe that meant that slave woman was coming into estrus, so they should have the stud cover her within the next 3 days to get her pregnant to increase their flocks. Or the way they put it, your stock of your numbers of livestock.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's insidious. And then they say might consider allowing the slaves to get married, because that will make the male slaves even more subject to your control, because they will be basically been all out of shape. The preachers having sex with their slave wife where they sleep with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But, I mean, we've got all kinds of things going wrong. And see, one of the things that I almost regret that I did, because it makes me uncomfortable, is at the very beginning of the 70s, I did an internship with a Washington think tank, and because I'm the only black in this thing, I got assigned the task of reviewing the slave pamphlets on microfilm in the Library of Congress. So I'm reading these microfilm pamphlets that give instructions on how to raise slaves for fun and profit. And I had grown up in Los Angeles. I mean, we'd come back when I was a child to visit relatives in the South. But, I didn't live here for an extended period of time. So in 1973, I got sent here on a job after I got out of law school. And I started looking at this. And I said, I just saw this. Just 6 months ago when I did that paper on this phenomenon, this is what I was looking at. Hell, this hasn't changed. And then this guy, Willie Lynch, there really was one. I remember what he said in a pamphlet he published in 1708. He was from Bermuda, and he had learned to handle slaves, so he came to the English colonies in the Americas, and he was giving lectures on how to raise the slaves properly. He said, you do these things I recommend. You can do them. Your overseer can do them. Your wife, your children can do them. And the slaves will make ideal slaves of themselves for the next 400 years. I assume he was being specious or funny when he put 400 years down there, but, that was 1708, and, we still haven't gotten out of the 400-year period. And guess what? You walk through the hood and you see a whole lot of slaves living on a plantation where the overseers don't have a crop for them to grow. Our so-called leadership has devolved into a bunch of cretins who have no balls and are interested in making money rather than uplifting the race or anybody else. And they act like they want to be slave overseers over their fellow slaves on a plantation that has no crop.
Mm-hmm.
But they have the disorder, it's like dogs fighting in a kennel. There's no manhood training, and you've got breeding females who have multiple kids by multiple baby daddies and don't know what to do with them. So it's bad. Now, we can change that, but it is a bad thing. And, we get inundated not with corrections. We spend our time in front of media, television, and the movies, and we look at some little brat kids down there. Oh, we're entitled to be safe. Okay, fine. Who's going to make you safe? You have to be willing to protect yourself. Oh, that's violent. Well, you're worried about violence. So what are you going to do, by the way, if, like I tweeted today, I said, I wonder what they're going to do the first time this generation gets their Kent State. These people are not good. They get all freaked out by Trump. Don't they get the idea that if they turn all that power over to the government, they're going to get somebody much worse than Trump who will take advantage of it?
No, I was actually thinking about Mike Pence. They said they were about Trump. What about Mike Pence?
Trump is a Boy Scout compared to that bag.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is what they said in the stage. Like you said, it's like the Third Reich. I mean, they taking away the guns. They try to control the information. Like, get rid of legitimate news sources and stuff. And it's like they're the thought police. You think of something, they want to get you in jail. I mean, it's weird what's going on right now.
Oh, yeah. See, Trump, I don't have a problem with. Trump does what we used to call in the 60s heightening the contradictions. What does that mean? It causes the contradictions to be seen and to be obvious. If it wasn't somebody that heightened the contradictions, you wouldn't even see them. Until he got elected, just think about all the people that were saying, oh, man, Ron, I don't understand, man. Why you all off into this black thing, man? Everything is different, man.
Right.
All you got to do is, you heard it. Whining and boo-hooing and crying.
Right.
Oh, Trump this. Oh, Trump that. And some fool person was talking to me. He's wrong. He got let the Russians influence our election. I said, did the Russians have anything to do with who you voted for? Well, no, but I didn't have anything to do with who I voted for. Do you know anybody out of any of your friends or acquaintances who will tell you that the Russians had to do with who they voted for? Well, obviously not enough people voted for Hillary. They must have had something to do with it. People can't stand that woman. So, so they couldn't stand her? And the Democrats were stupid enough that 10 years, 15 years ago, they set up a set of rules to guarantee that she would be in there. They set up for a decade trying to get somebody that was universally detested by too many people and very few folk loved her. They didn't get that. There was nobody that was enthusiastic about that woman, but a very few who just wanted a woman in there at all costs. Now they're talking about Kathleen Harris, but you're talking about Kathleen Harris. She was DA in California. So
Kamala Harris, yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's all caught up. Kamala Harris, not Kathleen, Kamala Harris, she's all caught up in a scandal about covering up for a DA in a situation where there was corruption planning evidence by the sheriff in L.A. County. And what went on is there was somebody that killed 7 people. So the families want the murderer brought to justice. Okay, they got the murderer. He confessed. He wants to take his time. No, there's some problems with the evidence that started coming out, and then it got revealed over a 6-year period. And guess what? A whole lot of cases had to be kicked because they falsified evidence. So, wowee whoopee. The guy pleads guilty to the court anyway, and he says he'll take multiple life sentences right out of parole. The families of the victims are saying, let's come on and do it. So the DA's office refused to accept that. They've been delaying it. It looks like some more years will pass because they're trying to fight to see we have to get the death penalty. Well, none of the families care. Let's get it over with.
Right.
This guy's been under arrest for 6 years and you've been stalling. And the further you get along with it, it may develop that you have no case at all because of what you did. So Kamala Harris gets in there and tries to help with the cover-up.
Wow.
And her thing is she lives in a 54% Hispanic thing, and she's talking nonsense about women have to unite because the men dumped on her in the Senate. Okay, and is she talking about women? She's talking about black women. Okay, good for the sisters. But hey, what about all of those Hispanic women that you represent? You remember, you're the senator for the largest state in the union. And oh, by the way, when you were DA, this was going on when you were L.A. County DA, this scandal, this cover-up that you tried to also help cover up. And then when you got to be state attorney general, you didn't do anything about it either. And there are a whole lot of minorities that are getting jacked around in the California system. And when she was in charge, she didn't do anything about cleaning it up. And then there are some people that are the Mr. Big type who were really cutting up doing wrong. And when she was state attorney general, she could have prosecuted. But lo, they escaped. And we found out that they donated to her campaign. Big money. And people tell me when she was out there as a cute little cutie pie, wearing short skirts as a young female assistant DA, all of the judges used to grin at her and they'd protect her when she tried to get in there and get vicious in a courtroom, not in terms of being effective. You had her stick my opponent. Oh, well, now, wait a minute. Excuse me. Calm down, counselor. She's a woman. See, she got protected, but she got up there with the big boys and like, we're not protecting you. You go this way, you got to hang. She couldn't. So they're talking about running Hillary again. And then Oprah for president?
No, wow.
Oh, come on. She's saying, I'm waiting for God to call me. If he calls me, I'll run. The only person that could beat Donald Trump right now is Bernie Sanders, and the DNC, that's the Democratic National Committee, does not want to be bothered with it.
Well, what about Joe Biden? What do you think about him?
Well, what's the problem with Bernie Sanders? He's too old?
I mean, Joe Biden's all them old. They pushing
No, Biden's 2 years older than Bernie Sanders. So if the Democratic Party says Sanders is too old, what about Biden, who's 2 years older?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Biden is a clown. He's a milquetoast nobody. He's just like Hillary. Before he farts, he got to hold his finger up in the air to see which way the wind is blowing. And whichever way it blows, he's going. He's got no leadership. He's a zero. He's like Edwards. I helped campaign for Terry Edwards when they were the ticket up in Ohio for 2 weeks. A friend of mine and I went up there. I was embarrassed because here is Edwards, who ultimately was supposed to be running for president. I'm on the stage with him. I'm getting more applause. Talking about, Judge, why don't you run? Than this little zero charisma cipher who's got a short man's complex. And then, see, that whole thing about what they did with Hillary, they thought she was going to get in there. See, Obama was supposed to knock Hillary out of the box. And then what was supposed to happen is the Republicans were going to rip up on Edwards because they had so much scandal. Well, guess what? He self-destructed too early, and their boy Barack beat Hillary. So Hillary didn't get in, but the Democratic Party was all bent out of shape by that. They just went for the flow, but they set up some rules to make sure that when he got through and she ran, she would be the presidential candidate. And they got the man right there, Bernie Sanders. Well, he's not a real Democrat. So what? Trump's not a Republican really either, but look who's in there. So we're going to this stupid song and dance, and the only person that really needs to be in there who's got any vision is Sanders. And guess what? Did you see that financial disclosure thing? All these people been employed by civil service their whole lives, and they're multimillionaires. How do you get to be a multimillionaire off of a civil service salary?
That's a good question.
And then you have Bernie Sanders. His net worth is about $700,000. Most of that came because he was a carpenter at one time in life.
Mm-hmm.
And see, we have a passing that happened today.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say something about that. Today's date is
March 26th.
March 26th.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Linda Brown,
Mm-hmm.
who was the brave little 9-year-old girl who was denied admission to a good school, and she and her also brave father, the great Thurgood Marshall, proceeded to Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. So the sister upheld the faith through her lifetime. She was a righteous person for the cause.
Mm-hmm.
So she passed today.
Yes.
Now, for that matter, one of my mentors passed yesterday. Now, I won't mention his name because of what I'm going to say, but it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
All of these no-good house Negroes today that claim to be leaders that talk about they have to be reasonable and they cannot control whatever is going on. Well, guess what? 50-some years ago, at a certain major university where there was insufficient African-American admission, some of us worked on getting some black folk in that school, and the administration reneged. Well, some of the brothers were righteous. Did they think about jeopardizing their careers? No. Homeboy put a .357 Magnum to the head of the dean and was sincere in his confessed intention to kill him if they reneged on this commission, this commitment to introduce some more African Americans to the school.
Wow.
But he retired, a successful man, lived a long age, grandchildren, all his children are successful, wife is successful, good man, done a lot for the people. But you see, he had bones.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Now, I'm not advocating that by no way.
Well,
do that, but,
mm-hmm.
you know, people can study what actually happened, and they can determine whether it's worth, you know, put that out there to do something for the people.
No, that's powerful. I mean, but, you know, I guess that I don't know what to say because you look at that march on the weekend and it had Dr. King's granddaughter up there. You know, I remember seeing her 2 years ago in Nashville for King Day 2016 with her father MLK III and Dick Gregory. And, you know, she said some motivational stuff then, but I'm saying, what do you think about that, the utilization of Dr. King's granddaughter for this anti-gun movement?
You know what? In the 60s, we said nonviolence was a dead-end street.
Mm-hmm.
It was more designed so that somebody who has a masochistic streak can be down on his knees while some fool is beating him about his head until somebody feels guilty about it. And our position was, you do that, we're going to try to take your hand off and your head off, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's 50 years ago.
Really?
We say, okay, King got killed for being nonviolent.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a good way to go out.
Mm-hmm.
He got blasted like some animal walking down a game trail. I know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI was complicit in it. They furnished the weapon. It was an XM21 7.62 by 51 NATO caliber special conversion of the standard M14 with a special stainless steel barrel, 73 of which were made by the Army Marksmanship Unit and assembled into select M14 so they would give stellar accuracy. They had a peculiar rate of rifling twist. It was down to unique then, which was one turn in every 11 1/4 inches rather than one turn in 10 or one turn in 12, which was typical of all other 30 caliber weapons that you could buy over the counter then. And that precisely matches the characteristics on the bullet they pull out of King's body. The bullet looks like it weighed about 162 grains before it hit him. Guess what? They loaded up a whole lot of special ammo with a 162 grain bullet that metallurgically matches the stuff that the FBI got several thousand rounds worth of, issued along with the 5 XM21s they got on an invoice in late December 1967. The Defense Department wanted them back. They saw no reason for the FBI to have them. And in late April 1968, upon demand, the FBI conducted an inventory, and they claimed they could only find 4 of them and didn't know what happened to the 5th one. That was what King got killed by. The shot came from the fire station dormitory. It did not come from the flop house. It didn't come from the bushes. And the reason a lot of people think it came from the bushes is because there was a device on board that XM21. It was a psionic suppressor that was designed to confuse listeners as to the source of the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Hey. And interestingly enough, the Memphis Police Department concluded that Ray was not even in Memphis. They said he wasn't the killer.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't found the killer yet. And for some reason, these prosecutors in Memphis, some of which wound up on the Court of Criminal Appeals, were so anxious, even though the local investigation said he's not the one. The FBI didn't come up with anything really, but they were anxious to make sure that James Earl Ray was going to be the one that took the dive. And by the way, he never confessed.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, the Defense Department ran some very high-tech stuff they have over some recorded statements that he made, just like they did with bin Laden or Putin, and they determined that he was telling the absolute truth when he said, I didn't kill him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't shoot. But anyway, that's another thing. But we've got all kinds of stuff going on here. See, young people who are listening, I do not envy you what is about to happen in this country.
Mm-hmm.
In about 30-some years' time, white people will no longer be the majority race in this country. And all of these people who are the Klan type, the Nazi type, the white supremacist type, the skinhead type, they are going to be raising pure hell about that. Memphis is a prototype. It's the largest majority black city in the United States. They're practicing here how to manage a majority black city with a small white constituency. I'm not being racist about this. It's just that, whites are only 19.1% of the registered voters in the city.
Mm-hmm.
They're only 23.9% of the registered voters in the county. But black votes have no effect. The Justice Department 10 years ago found, this is under the Bush administration, not Obama, that in this area, the use of the deballed voting machines had not produced a fair election since 2000 when they got installed because they'd been corrupted. They gave the city and the county the money to replace every machine. But for the last 10 years, there have been black Democrats on the county commission who voted against replacing machines, and all it takes is a simple majority vote, a resolution. And the machines are so bad that the state of California has a brochure that it used to have online on how to hack the machines using a smartphone. where you could detail or dictate the outcome of an election by typing up a certain type of text that you send to a third party. You just press send when you're within 5 or 6 feet of the voting machines, and the slot where you put that card in that gives you your ward precinct will pick up the transmission, and you corrupted that machine. Then in 10 minutes, everyone in the precinct, and then within 45 minutes to an hour, you corrupted every machine in the system.
Hmm.
And by the way, 20 years, there's never been a breakdown of a voting machine in a majority white precinct. How come we only have them in the black precinct, and every time there's a disgracefully high number that break down in the black precincts?
Hmm.
See, but our elected officials have no cojones. They don't pay attention to that.
Wow.
And then let's say, okay, let's take the guys who want to get up and get King's granddaughter in there supporting the no guns. Well, look at here. I've been in criminal justice for 40-some years, and I can tell you all police can do is basically is draw a white chalk outline around your body. They can't stop somebody from killing you. So what are you supposed to do? Take a bucket of rocks like this principal did at this one school that he wanted, students to be unarmed? That is ridiculous. What are you going to do when you have somebody can take a baseball bat and go buy, common fertilizer and kill 250 people at one stroke? See, all you have to do is, let's say you want to take somebody out and really make a point. These schools in a lot of cities have no fences around. So all you got to do is take a van, SUV, a clunker, a pickup, pack 200 pounds worth of fertilizer, and you've got the equivalent of 300 pounds worth of TNT, which is a whole lot of TNT. By the way, 1,000-pound bomb, most of that is steel casing. You've got maybe 150, 170 pounds worth of, guess what they use as a filler? Ammonium nitrate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be anywhere around a half-ton bomb going off. So let's take the van up there, and you've got 250, 300 pounds of ammonium nitrate fertilizer. You've got a couple of 12-volt batteries and a little black powder, and you just decide to drive the thing up on the lot, where the teachers park right between two buildings, and walk down the street and take your cell phone and hit send, and the cell phone you've hooked up with the detonator in there, which is basically black powder with a battery running bare wire through it. And boom, you've got a situation. How many kids you wipe out if you take down a whole school building?
Mm-hmm.
Stop somebody. No guns? All right, even then, let's say you get rid of 22 caliber AR, whole assault rifle. Somebody knows what he's doing. Takes an old-time 100-year-old pump shotgun, Remington 870, which everybody and his mama's got a pump shotgun somewhere around the house. How many people in America got a 12-gauge pump? And you can go down to a sporting goods store, and they have periodic sales, Mossberg 500, which are exactly what the military uses. You can sometimes get them $129 with a short 18-inch barrel and a long 28-inch barrel, so you can hunt with it and have it for home defense. $129, $159. Go down and buy you some very common buckshot you can get off of the counter in any hardware store, country store, anywhere in the world, especially in America. And you can go in there, and if you know what you're doing, you can kill a whole lot of people. By the way, you know why the military uses Mossberg 500?
Why?
Because when they want to kick in the door over there in Afghanistan or previously in Iraq, it was a lot more effective than the assault rifles, the real ones that are full auto that everybody is so freaked about.
Mm-hmm.
So they issue 12-gauge, 18-inch barrel Mossberg 590s that have a heavier barrel so they don't bend, and or Manelli 1014s M1014s, which you can buy as a Benelli M4 at most gun stores, and nobody's squawking about it. So you can get the same thing the military issues when they got to go in on close quarters inside a building because they are more effective. But nobody thinks about that. Oh, my God, assault rifles. Who would need why?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I was thinking about, they said the most deadliest attack in school history was what happened in May of 27 in Bath, Michigan. Well, a white dude named Andrew Kehoe blew up the school and killed almost 44 children and blew himself up in the car afterwards. Like kind of like what they said the officer bomber did. But like you said, I mean, anything can be weaponized. It's about weaponize anything.
You don't have to weaponize it. It is the filler for most artillery shells.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to see how somebody can work with a 12-gauge shotgun, he actually knows what he's doing because he goes to the range a lot. Watch John Wick, Part 1 and Part 2. They'll have Part 3. It's a very good demonstration of what somebody can really do with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it's like, what are you trying to do? See, these guys, these kids, I guess, want to be relevant, right? Well, you see, this is what's so insidious about it. Relevance, trying to be in, and all of this other stuff is determined by what? The media.
Right.
When I was growing up, we modeled ourselves on Woody Scruggs, a black football player, the second one hired by the NFL with the Rams. And he got into the movie. And then they had John Wayne, and then they had Lee Marvin and all of that bunch. You know, everybody modeled themselves on that. So they want to be relevant. So what these people are doing now, these kids, is they're modeling themselves on what the media tells them. They don't have any original thoughts. They haven't thought this through. It's just they hear it, so they want to be in, and they're going off because this is the thing without understanding what it's about. You see, the Second Amendment is in there so you don't get a tyrant deciding that he's going to run stuff. Trump is by no means the worst somebody that's been off in the presidential office.
Yeah,
there were some people back in the early part of the 19th century that if you had them in there now with what they have available, oh, that would be horrible. Let me give you a scenario that is all too real.
Okay.
What is our problem as black people? We have a slave background, right? So Lincoln signed an Emancipation Proclamation that only freed the slaves in the states in rebellion by declaring them contraband. It's 1863. 1865, you get the 13th Amendment that outlaws slavery and involuntary servitude, right? Wrong. It doesn't. It only says it says this approximately, there shall be no slavery nor involuntary servitude except upon due process of law as a punishment for a criminal offense. What are we talking about? Direct path from the schoolhouse to jailhouse. And how many of who is sitting up in the jailhouse? Under American constitutional law, all of those people could be punished by being enslaved permanently or for a term under American law. Now, just what happens if when we start getting into that just at the point where crowding is getting a little worse in 30 years, global warming is causing a little problem here and there, we've got situations, folks getting out of control, and somebody says we got to stop this at all costs. So while we whoopee, we've got a labor problem, we want to stop the illegal, let's put all of these people freeloading up in the penitentiaries to work. Wow, did you realize, Charlie, that the 13th Amendment lets us enslave these fools? Let's see what we can do. So then what are you going to do? You disarmed yourself. The thugs have them, but, you know, the thugs, you can't depend on the thugs to save you. So what are you going to do? And then let's talk about the serious hardware. There are some real assault rifles that are out on the streets, but they didn't buy them at a gun store. They didn't buy them at a gun show. You know where they came in?
Black market or Mexico.
Well, how about along with the cocaine and the heroin that's been subject of a 35, 38-year-long drug war that has been very unsuccessful? You see, they don't just ship in cocaine and opiates and heroin.
Right.
They ship in guns, too. Where do they come from? Well, there are a whole lot of American military weapons that come in from South America along with the cocaine. We sold them to the South Americans. They came from Inter Armco, located in Alexandria, Virginia. That's who shipped them out. And when you trace several serial numbers, when one comes up, that's what it shows as this point of origin. So it comes back in with cocaine. Our government turns a blind eye. Why? Because, my God, they have to fight international terrorism. So these people need to be able to raise money for black ops so they can fight international terrorism. Okay. Israel seized arsenals full of Kalashnikov-designed weapons, real AK-47s, and those Arab-Israeli wars in the 60s and 70s. Well, they have them. They're in a warehouse. They don't want them. They've got their own indigenous industry. They've got a Tabor right now, which is a bullpup, great rifle. It's .223, by the way, 22 caliber, 5.56. So they're dumping all of these Kalashnikovs on the black market along with opiates. So the U.S. government turns a blind eye because the ally Israel needs to raise money for black ops to deal with ISIS and terrorism. Okay. And then you've got further into the Middle East, you've got Afghanistan and Iraq, where there are a whole bunch of Kalashnikovs. Remember, they seized all of these weapons that Hussein's boys had stashed away, and they turned most of them back over to the Iraqis, who need some quick cash, and then a lot of those got seized by ISIS that came up because we created a power vacuum. So they're selling them with the opiates that come out of Afghanistan, and they're coming back into the country. And then the other one is South Korea, where they're raising money to fight, to do something to counter Rocket Boy, Kim Jong-un, So, of course, we need that. Oh, he's such a threat. So they've got an indigenous arms industry known as Daewoo, Daewoo. So they're making their hardware for their military in South Korea. So they're dumping all of these American military weapons that we gave them, along with some opiates and heroin, for purposes of black ops. That's like that thing back in the 80s with the Reagan administration, St. Ron de Reagan. And it was all about arms for Contras and all this nonsense and Stinger missiles to the freedom fighters in Afghanistan, now Taliban, who are supposed to be our enemies but still have a Stinger shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles that are so handy. About 2,000 of them unaccounted for. We can't think about that, And then you've got the other alternative. We have crime, and our officers need to be able to match the armament of the criminal element out on the street. So let's say down someplace right outside of Shreveport, Louisiana, the local sheriff's department wants to order 15 full auto M4 carbines for its SWAT team. Okay, so they put them on a semi-truck. All right, let's say that going into a part of the Texas, this part of the Texas State Police, the state, Texas Rangers, they want 35 full auto M4s for their special units. So they're on this truck. okay, a number of other items of hardware. So they're in shipment. 18-wheeler. It's what? Hijacked by organized crime. And all of this huge 18-wheeler rig worth of weapons are now dumped on the black market. Right down here, they have armories in Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Oklahoma. And if you go in these armories for the National Guard units, they've got unopened in the original wrapper with caked on cosmoline in the original shipping cartons and crates, M3 45 caliber submachine guns, full auto M2 carbines, all sorts of interesting hardware, and nobody's looked at them in 80 years. And they go in and good old boys take one or two, you know, we need it for the cause. They don't buy this stuff at a gun show. They don't buy this stuff over the counter at a gun shop. They've got all kinds of chains. I had to help out a grown woman, retired, who has been an honorable person because, I mean, she's in her 80s, and she needed a pistol. You know, they wouldn't sell her one because she kept coming up with a hit from something that happened almost 65 years ago.
Wow.
When she was a teenager. She didn't do it. It was one of her relatives got somebody called on, so they just took the whole family down.
Wow.
Let them all go. But she got held up on a background check.
So 65 years ago.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Good person. Had an honorable job. So you see, you have in any system, you have things that slip between the cracks. Now, how many people do you have in the U.S.? What? Conservative estimate, 320 million people?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
When you have 320 million people and about 280 to 300 million firearms floating around, and people are coming in buying more because they didn't have one that they got from great-granddad that he acquired 75, 80 years ago, and it's been in the sock drawer, you know, since day one. They want one. And when you get millions of people run through a system, you're going to make mistakes. Statistically, it's inevitable. So the problem is the mistakes are being blown all out of proportion. And people are saying, we don't want to be able to defend ourselves. We want to trust that in 10, 15, 30 years, there's not going to be any social unrest. We want to say that the Nazi Party, the skinheads, the white right bunch, the Ku Klux Klan won't have a resurgence. And we will be safe. We will be unarmed, and we can get our suits and our shoes and our clothes and our bling, and we don't need to protect ourselves. Okay, what about where your grandmother or your aunt, uncle, or what about aunt someplace or a friend girl live down in the hood where they have all these thugs? Who's going to deal with them? What are the police supposed to come through? Shoot them? You know, they can break in 5, 6 of them, break in, tie up an old lady and rape her all they want, take her a check. They don't need a firearm for that. But she might need her weapon to protect herself. But you want to take that away? Oh, we just want to take away these evil assault rifles. Well, guess what? It's America's most popular rifle. When you start doing that, you've got a whole lot of people who have accumulated one since they've been on sale for the civilian market since not recently, not 10 years ago, not 15 years ago, not 20 years ago, in the 1960s, which has been, they've been on sale for to the civilian market for 50 years. Now, how many of them do you think you have on circulation? It doesn't make any sense. That's not the thing. What's wrong is this wrong-headedness about The way you raise children, the way you don't need a father in the home. I don't need a man. I don't want a man. I don't want to be a man syndrome.
Yeah.
You see, that's bad. The way in school, you can't punish the kids in school. So what do? We suspend them and we give them time out or make them sit out in the hallway. They don't want to be in class anyway. So is it a punishment giving them what they want in the first place? That's an incentive.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
You know what?
Go ahead.
I was thinking what you were saying about the men. Like the New York Times article, it talked about a lot of things that even in the poorest communities where men are present, not necessarily the biological father, but where you had men who were present in that community, it made a difference for the young boy's life.
Oh, yes. See, it's the idea of manhood.
Mm-hmm.
His father may have been a scoundrel and run off.
Right.
He may have died by a heart attack, accident, in a war someplace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the mother may have had an accident. But if she understands the value of manhood, if the grandparents, the aunts and uncles understand it, if the neighbors understand it, if the mainstream media understands and pushes it, then that boy has a good chance of having the appropriate ideation put in his head so he learns to and values the control of self. So when he looks in the mirror in the morning, he doesn't need a police department to keep him straight. He keeps himself straight.
That's right.
I do this because I'm a man. It's my job to make where I live a better, safer, more secure place filled with economic prosperity, ethics, and a sense of morality and purpose. You see, he does that to himself. But when you don't have that, and you have the media showing what is the popular thing, you got gangster, thug, hip-hop, rap video, where it looks like the guys are all down and they got all the babes bouncing around half naked, you know, real masculine thing, male dominant. That's not what you're looking at. What you're really looking at is these half naked women. He's 17, and that's his 29-year-old mama playing hoochie mama in the middle of the summer with a 40 ounce in one hand and a cigarette in the other. That's his grandmama, who's 42, just got through having a baby. She has on some booty shorts and a halter top playing hoochie mama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his aunt. Now that's their girlfriend. That's what he's surrounded by. And the men come in, you know, looking toe down, you know, like hand out, you know, begging and simping. Yeah, baby, you know, sweet daddy here. Oh, honey, you know, mama gonna take care of you, honey.
Right, yeah, oh, you lying. Yeah, that's true. Just telling like it is, man.
I mean, it's almost a cliche. It sounds strange, but I'd ask, you know, I wasn't one of the judges that wasn't in touch. I had to do different things when I had a probation hearing. It's all right, young man. You're asking the court to place you on probation. How are you going to support yourself? I don't see that. The court doesn't see that in the record. Yo, judge, see, I got plenty to post. I got 4 women. You know, 2 of them got good JOBs. One get a crazy check. One get an AFDC thing. You know, they takes good care of me. Well, what do? I smooth them out. What do you do? Well, ain't that enough? No, it's not. Sounds like a drone. You know, these are a wasp or an ant maybe, but, you know, I don't see you have 6 legs looking like an insect. What is your problem? What you mean, what's my problem? Why don't you act like a man? That's not a man. It sounds like a slave or a parasite. Kept little boy toy. Let's see, I'll break it down to them. So the statewide recidivism rate for felons was 80%. My courtroom was 18. What was the secret? I taught them manhood and put it in their souls about how badly they really wanted to be a man. So you know how children learn? They imitate adults.
Mm-hmm.
So if they got a man around, they can imitate the man. If they see a man on TV, they can imitate that man. Do they see men on TV? No. Not men. Or they act like psychopaths, or they, you know, glamorize drug dealers or OG gangsters in the hood. That's what we look at.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're little sissified fools, or they have little stuff like, what is it? Ethnic stuff. It's a cartoon. an animation where the heroine is a black female doctor. She's got a cute face, got a big old butt,
Mm-hmm.
and she brags to her friend girls who are also lady doctors, and she talks about how well her husband takes care of the home, does the dishes, and he has such great taste in drapes and furnishment. And he always cooks, and his meals are just so great. And you got this little frilly punk drone, black man who doesn't have a job because he says it's best for him to stay at home so his wife can devote full time to her career. Dr. Stuffing, this little 7-year-old girl who's got a magic necklace that turns stuffed animals and toys from being inanimate to being actually alive. So she doctors on it. And then she's got all the little girls she leads in the neighborhood, and they're smart, and all the little boys are dumb creepins that are sissies going to grow up to be drones like Daddy there. At least they have them in the home, but what's the point of a man who doesn't work? That's a disgrace. See, that's just too many stereotypes about us. So it's all white females who come up with this cartoon. They designed it, they animate it, and they write it.
Mm-hmm.
But they use black folks to make their presentation of their point of view, and the black male in there is not a man, he's a drone. And don't we have too many problems in our community with men who don't work?
Right.
And speaking of that, let's not just talk about us. The Defense Department even got upset about this 7 years ago, when they came out with a white paper on it. Do you know what percentage of the workforce is male in America, all races considered?
What is the percentage?
44%. The
Majority
of the workforce, 6% is female. That means 21% of the males in this country, 21+%, are not employed.
Mm-hmm.
And they aren't even included in the unemployment statistics because they haven't worked enough to be considered. You know what percentage of the high school graduates for the first 10 years of the 21st century were male, all races considered? That's 28%. You know what percentage of the college students, undergrads, were in America for the first 10 years of the 21st century? Just 32%. You know what percentage of the graduate students in America for the first 10 years were male, all races considered? 36%.
Wow.
Now, you see what the problem is? And let's get deep about it. For 50 years, 48 years, they have had a Take Your Daughter to Work Week. You ever heard them talk about Take Your Son to Work Week?
No, sir.
Of course not. So are you surprised at what happened? The policy is, remember, no cap guns, no water pistols, no war toys. Oh, my God. And that's the way they get it. Or I'm on the West Coast. These folk are multimillionaires. I'm in one of those kind of parties you see on TV. It's at one of those kind of houses. They've got all these parents around, and the women sound like they are attending a conference, a convention for child psychology. And I'll never forget this one instance. There's this brat up in the tree. He's climbed up in this guy's tree. And the mother is standing there going, Jonathan, please come down, Jonathan. You might get hurt, Jonathan. And then went to Mama. Jonathan, please come down. She's begging this kid for like 10, 15 minutes. She even starts crying. Jonathan, Mother is going to cry. I'm so nervous you're going to hurt yourself. I don't care, Mama. I'll take a 10-minute time out. I'm having fun. Oh, please, Jonathan, come down. Mother is so worried. And she's got tears running down her face. Well, the inevitable happens. The branch breaks. This little fool falls about 8 or 9 feet, 10 feet, I guess, and he cracks his wrist, it turns out. Mother goes all hysterical. She's rolling all on the ground in hysterics, screaming, and, she's clutching the boy, trying to squeeze him so he can't breathe, and people are trying to get her to unpanic so they can see what actually happened to the boy. And she shrieks and shrieks. Somebody said, well, let's take him to the emergency room. There's one not far away. She shrieks and shrieks. They have to wait for the ambulance to get there. The ambulance driver, once he finds out what's going on, and the 911 paramedics that are there are angry because they've had a problem with heart attacks that week, and they've got multiple calls. So they heard this is a, life-threatening injury, so they get over there because he's got a cracked wrist. Why don't you just take him to the emergency room? It's like half a mile that way. Oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my baby, oh, my baby, oh, my baby, and it's drama. But you see, that woman failed her child. She's her husband is a multimillionaire. She doesn't have much to do with him, and he's a kind of little on the other side. He doesn't really like women that much, but it looks good for his resume.
Right.
That's his business, but I'm looking at what's going wrong with his child. So he's begged to come down. Nobody enforced this. A cuff to the butt, or a belt could have saved him a broken wrist. That's never a thought. And by the way, in some states like Tennessee, corporal punishment is not against the law. You can spank your child as long as you don't brutalize. In other words, boy, bring me that belt. I'm not going to brutalize you, but I'm going to come as close as I can, so you about to catch it. Now, young man, he wasn't angry and jumping up and down. Mama's all, how you wait till your daddy gets home? Just wait till he hears about this. You just wait. You just wait. She might have spanked you or something. She's all angry. Pop comes home. Look at you. You know what that son of yours did? Oh, baby, what did he do? I'm going to tell you. Okay, hey, boy, come here. Get my belt. You know the one in the closet. Bring it here. Oh, yeah, don't even go there. I told you did this. You knew what was going to happen to you when you did it. Take punishment like a man. All right, grab your knee. Look at that wall. Don't eyeball me, boy. You're getting 10. Wham! Don't you move. Wham! Take your punishment like a man. Wham! Okay, you jump. That don't count. Get another one. You remember how that went. In other words, it wasn't anger. It was dispassionate discipline. You did wrong, pay the consequences. You see, that's an artificial pain, a strap, which in the real world at one time might have meant something to eat you up. Or even now, I actually saw this happen. It was something of a tragedy, but it was inevitable. You know what it was?
What?
I saw it tragically on one and good turnout on the other. Boys getting ready to run out in the street. This kid was trained. The uncle said, "Hold it, boy, don't move." He froze. His car was out of control, speeding down the street, missed it. Another one, "Boy, don't move, don't move." He came out, got killed. Car hit him. He wasn't obedient. He had a reputation for being out of hand. See the difference in that, though?
Wow.
That's why you put a belt to somebody's butt so they get order. You see, that is why to raise a man, and you don't hear it. It used to be you got told, "Boy, this is how a man acts. Boy, don't you act like that. It's not how a man acts." Every time you even thought about doing something wrong, you heard that. You don't hear it. You want to cry about something? Let's go to the restroom. I'll give you something to cry about.
Wow.
Better suck it up. I mean, the coaches used to say, "Suck it up, son, walk it off." Now, they go freak somebody got bumped on a football field. Oh, my God, they may have a concussion.
Did you have a chance to, speaking of kids and gun control, if you had a chance to listen to the rapper Killer Mike's interview on NRA TV?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I hated it when he cried to qualify.
Yeah, I didn't see anything wrong he said out of line at all. Even if it was out of line, it still was his opinion, and he's entitled to it. But he basically, to my understanding, he was talking about why African Americans should arm themselves and protect their homes. And I don't see a problem with it, but they'll act like he was trying to make light of what the kids were doing on Saturday. And what was interesting to me is that Dr. King's granddaughter, now, when I look at the history, the alternative history, or the one they don't talk about, Dr. King's life was actually lengthened by him having armed black men around him, like the March Against Fear, biggest for defense. And I know I talked to Charles Evers on several occasions, and this is Mega Evers' brother. He said Dr. King used to run to his house down in Jackson because I feel safe because y'all have all the guns and goons, Charles. And Charles Evers stayed with a gun. You know what I'm saying? But Dr. King felt safe around black men with guns. Same thing with Captain Jerry Williams, who was organizing the police detail for Dr. King. And the last time he was in Memphis, he didn't have their police protection.
Well, he did have police protection. See, this is what it's about. Mm-hmm. There were 6 black cops, 6 black detectives and sergeants that were acting as his bodyguard crew. Mm-hmm. And their commanders said, all of you have threats against your lives. You need to come down here to the downtown station. They refused. Right. They came out, ordered them, made them leave. Well, mm-hmm. There was one officer who was up at the fire station doing a responsible overwatch thing.
Yeah.
And he refused to leave. There was one black fireman up there, and they told him his son had been critically injured in an accident, so he leaves to go check on his son. Turns out the son's fine. He told that I'll be back. He said, don't worry about it, take the day off. Okay, this particular officer who is there gets told you're ordered immediately to headquarters. He said, I'm not going. They called him again. I'm not going. He says, I'm not going. So they send down 10 white officers riding in 2 squad cars. They jump him. They double handcuff him. They hog tie his legs with a rope. They manhandled him back out, threw him in the back seat of a car, and drove him off. Mm-hmm. Then, guess what?
What?
That's when he got killed, within 15 minutes of that. And see, the other thing, Edgar Hoover personally called off the auditory and visual surveillance of King 48 hours before he got shot. That's the first time it had stopped in years. And see, one of his advisors is the one that told King to stop having a pistol. He said, if you're going to be nonviolent, you can't have a pistol. What was that advisor he had that was on the other side?
Oh, the Dr. King?
Yeah, the gay one.
Oh, Barry Rustin. Oh, Barry Rustin, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that kept telling him you don't need a gun. See, but King even had a gun. He had good sense. They just thrown him out of it.
Mm-hmm. But he was protected by guys with guns. I mean, after that woman stabbed him up in Harlem doing that book signing, I mean, people don't understand, like, even Malcolm X, one of his biggest mistakes was not having guns on his bodyguards at the Audubon. And he also, at one point, had, when he had the rallies at the Audubon, it would be a police presence at the Audubon, but it was all blocks away from there or whatever. But normally they say you would have 36 police officers on the scene when, not him, but the city, when he was doing his rallies at the Audubon. And Dr. King, it makes a difference. I mean, I just think that we're not told that history. We think everything was nonviolent when that's not the truth. I mean, I had friends of mine who was in Mississippi. They talking about getting in shootouts with the sheriff and the Klan and throwing Molotov cocktails. I mean, these are black people down south getting in shootouts with the Klan. But they don't talk about that part in the history books.
That's it. That is very much it. So, you see, it does not do us as a people any good to be unarmed.
Right.
It does us absolutely no good.
So you,
that officer was Ed Reddick.
Yeah, Officer Ed Reddick, yeah.
From the scene.
Yeah, I had talked to him before on the show. He had some interesting insight, but like he said, it's something that he told me that was very powerful. It's like I advise people in my mind that if you should never be a broke person who loves easy money and perks running for office. A broke person has no business running for office without who just love perks and easy money, because you're gonna be doing football numbers in the pen. And there's no reason why people should be running for office just to have a paycheck. You should be running for office to serve the people.
That's it. And see, too many of our would-be leadership look at it as a money-making proposition rather than as a leadership one.
And that's the wrong way to look at it.
That's right. They aren't about service. They're about exploitation.
Well, when you think about, like you talking about Memphis, to me, like you talked about, how Memphis could be. Like I look at Atlanta, in spite of some of its shortcomings, Atlanta really is what Memphis could have been. I mean, I see.
Hold on. Let's stop. Atlanta ain't all this and that.
I agree.
One of the problems with Atlanta, I said, 40-some years ago, I looked at it. I got through it, and I said, what's wrong with this place? When they built that airport, a lot of black people came into some serious money.
Right.
Money didn't get spread around, and there's nothing else for the rest of them. So they have one group of black folks that is pretty affluent and another group that is flat, broke, busted. And when you come down to Atlanta, if you're not dealing with the well-to-do folk, the rest of them are about as bad off as they are here. And see, the other thing, Atlanta is not as large as Memphis.
Right.
So Memphis, by the way, is unusual. Within Shelby County, one of the highest per capita numbers of millionaires in the country exist here in Shelby County. But some of the brokest people live in Shelby County, too.
Yep.
It's like two different towns. I stay out east, out in Germantown. I tried to stay in the hood, but various places I got burglarized so often, it was a matter of somebody's going to die up in here, start saying I'm going to sit and leave the door open. Somebody's going to come, and don't think like that, enough's enough. I'll come back in and help. I got to have your home space.
Yeah.
What thing?
You need to have peace of mind when you get your home. Places your home should be peace of mind there. You shouldn't have to worry about people breaking in your house.
Another thing, too, I'll tell you. When I had a James Earl Ray case, there's some stuff that didn't get reported. One night I was at home, and there were 5 people tried to break in, and there was some gunfire exchange. It didn't hit the press. There was no report of it. I got in touch since I was a judge with the director of police, late Officer Winfrey. And we wrote it down, checked it out, and there was no report of that thing. They tried to kill me.
Wow.
So I'll tell you, but I was armed. I'll tell you what, I actually was enjoying myself while it was going down, and then after it was over, that's when I started thinking about it. But my thought was, damn, I could have got in a whole lot of trouble behind that. What was this all about? So I was nervous about what was going to happen. So, I said, wait a minute. Here's the judge, sit there, check this out, call the precinct, and see what's going on, call the director at home and tell him, go right to the top. Say, look, man, I've got another incident. There's been some others going on, too, some very strange break-ins.
Wow.
And, it's hazardous. One time, my secretary, while I was on the bench, said, Judge, you need to take this call. I said, what's up? So I took a quick recess. I I said, what's going on? So this is Officer so-and-so and so-and-so. We're out here in the parking lot. There's some people trying to break into your Lexus. I said, what's going on? So I said, okay. They said, we're on top of it, but we want you to know about it. You know what was going on? They were trying to break in my Lexus and plant 2 kilos of coke.
Wow.
Guess what? They were federales, too.
Oh, man.
I was one little scene. I was coming north on Cooper, going toward a Union, and I noticed I was being followed, but I had some brothers that were MPD that I'd known. You know, they're retired now. They said, we got your back, Judge. You're being followed. I said, I know. So when you get up here at Union, there's a no left turn sign. Make a left turn anyway and pull into that. I think it was it, an Exxon station that was on that corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and these 2 fools pulled in behind me, and homeboys just vamped in there and said, we got it. Go on about your business.
Did you find out who they were? Did they tell you who they were?
What's that?
Did you find out their identity, the people that were following you?
Did I find out who it was that was following?
Yes, sir.
They kind of looked like they were official.
Mm.
They were driving that kind of depot federal car, you know, the gray ones that they had in the motor pool? Yeah, that kind.
Wow.
With the federal license plate.
Wow. Well, you know, it was proven in civil court that the government was complicit, or they were found guilty of being complicit in the assassination of Dr. King.
I was the ballistics expert for that trial. I testified in front of the jury about what had happened with testing the rifle and all of that, some other stuff that I had done on it. They qualified me as an expert, so I testified in front of the jury. Most people don't know that, but I don't exactly agree with Attorney Pepper's conclusions. I have some rather different ones, and all of that wild nonsense and everything. What I saw when I got into it is that there were at least 4, possibly 5 alternative scapegoats. And Ray turned out to be the most convenient one. The shot being fired from the flop house did not occur. The detectives who got there, and actually in later years after I got off the bench, got an affidavit from this particular detective who was the first homicide officer there on the scene. He says he went to the flop house. He was directed there. No, he never could figure out why somebody directed him to the flop house. He was told there were 2 eyewitnesses to the gunman being in there. He said they were so drunk they had otherwise fatal doses of alcohol, and he had to call 911, and the paramedics took them to the emergency room where they stayed in ICU for several days because they were too drunk to revive. And when he got to the flop house bathroom where he was told to go, and he indicated he never found out who told him to go there through dispatch, he said there was a big tree right there at that part. It was between the flop house bathroom window and the Lorraine Motel. You couldn't even see the Lorraine Motel. So when crime scene got back an hour later, the tree had been cut down. So the shot came from the fire station dormitory, about 45 yards across the street, point blank range. The weapons had already been sighted in. It seems to have been a 2-man shoot team. One was the spotter, one was the shooter. The spotter got a call that came from the Lorraine Motel advising that King was coming out. Somebody called one of the rooms. And from what we got on tracing the thing around, it looks like that call ultimately got to the fire station. Interesting. There were several calls made from this room to the fire station. I won't go into that. Let me just say this. People have accused Jesse Jackson of being the culprit. He is not. I sat next to him on an airplane and discussed my findings with him, and his remark was interesting. It was, we need to get to the bottom of this. Whatever I can do, let me know. I talked to Reverend Lowry about it. his conclusion was, we need to get to the bottom of it. Anything I can do, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Ambassador Andrew Young. He said, anything I can do, let me know. We need to find out what happened. And he gave me a few months ago, he confided in me something else I'm not going to talk about. It had to do with this whole situation. But interestingly enough, as to two other suspects, one of whom was not Jesse Jackson, they gave me, interestingly enough, the exact same answer, which was, let sleeping dogs lie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of them, I believe, Dick Gregory sort of had a recording of.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Billy Cows.
And the other one is now passed on. We won't deal with him right now.
Mm-hmm.
But our investigation actually found no complicity between Jesse Jackson and what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd exonerate him.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's anything that does make it look questionable as to him, I think the same boys that set this thing up deliberately put that out. One of the things that most people don't realize from back in the late 60s is one of their tactics, which was most insidious, is that the FBI and out in Los Angeles, LAPD's SIS unit, Special Investigative Services Unit, would deliberately spread false rumors about people. So everybody looking over their shoulder and looking askance at people that were actually trying to do something. So whereas there was a tight community thing that had developed after 1965 up until about 1967, they did a very effective job of taking some naive people who wanted to make a very profound change, and they worked it. They spread dissension, they spread distrust, and they had an organization known as the US organization that we had a lot of firm evidence on as being the source of a whole lot of intelligence that got back from what people in the community were doing in LAPD and the FBI. Now, that group, Ron Karenga, the Malata Ron Karenga, also known as Ron Everett, 1966, he started Kiwanza. And a lot of people in L.A. wanted to jump in on it, and everybody started pulling back when we found out it looked like a Dodge that was set up for the purpose of getting black people to talk so these people could gather up information to report back to the police. Very nasty situation, so I refuse to celebrate it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got too many people that were close acquaintances of mine. They in the ground because they got murdered during that time. It looked like black on black stuff, but it wasn't because it was the US organization going around killing people. Nation of Islam had a problem with them. The BSUs at the various colleges in the large LA area had a problem with them. And they gunned down Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, who were Black Panthers, who were UCLA students that I personally recruited to go to school there. We also had Geronimo Pratt, who was a Black Panther. We had Nathaniel Clark, who was a Black Panther. And we had Elaine Brown, who wrote a book about the Panthers. When it was going downhill, she became the first female chair out there. So we decided that we were going to set up a third world thing, the same thing that the Killmonger's daddy and he were talking about, a third world thing. So we were organizing with the Hispanics, the Asians, and the Native Americans to set this up. So they had an old building they were going to tear down known as Campbell Hall. So we got it. We convinced them that we needed to have it. Now they have one of the biggest buildings on campus, Bunch Hall, named after a brother Ralph Bunch, who was one of the first U.S. officials to be a high secretary in the UN.
Mm-hmm.
Black guy went to UCLA at the same time that later Tom Bradley went there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we got this set up. So Karinga's folks wanted to set this thing up, take over, and make it a 4-year course in what we call jokingly but seriously usology. They had a saying, everywhere we are, us is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to trouble yourself by reading all you need to know because Maulana Ron Karinga will teach you. So they had their little hustles going on, and what happened is everybody pushed back. We had a little confusion because we had gotten in 250 extra black folks for the 67-68 year. And they were some, not all of them, but too many of them were some real punk-ass people. When we got to them to go do some stuff about keeping the thing going, instead of getting up and going to do what we did, they say, brother, I'm sorry. I appreciate everything that you've done, but I can't afford to jeopardize my career. You'll have to go on without me. I'll be there with you in spirit. Grab that folks. One of them that I promised I'd beat his butt if I ever caught him someplace where I could get away with it before he died, but unfortunately he's dead now. He got so scared, he had on some gray pants. He pissed on himself. There was piss all down his left leg and a puddle of it around his left foot. And we had to hold that fool because he wanted to run. But see, to give you perspective, you know, we all know who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the basketball player, was, right?
Yes.
He is. So he was known as Lou Alcindor then. Well, guess what? He always had a slide rule clipped to his belt because he was in engineering, had a B average in it. And anytime something was going on, come on, Big Lou, we need to go, man. All right, let's go. Right there with us. Football team, let's go, guys. All right, man, let's go. We got to make a move. See, all of these people that about something. Interesting enough, there were 9, 10, 15 folks that wound up going to law school, and to this day, if they're not already dead, they made damn good lawyers, you know, and a lot of them wound up judges. Let's go, man. We're on the job. See, we got these trifling, half-stepping folks that never made anything of themselves. They were talking about they couldn't jeopardize their career. See, it's always the fourth generation. See, you get the first group that's really trying to make a difference. They're trying to do that W.E.B. Du Bois thing, be the talented 10th and help the race bootstrap itself up. But then you got the next bunch comes in there, they try to maintain, and then there's a little drift, and then you get the third bunch in, they rally around, and then they get the fourth bunch in, and the fourth bunch doesn't want to be bothered because nobody was vigilant about who got in there. Whether you're talking politics or anything else. They get in there and they look at it as I always wanted to be. And it's like somebody's coming up with a cartoon. They sent me to help thing asking them to help raise money. It's about a black kid who wants to be a judge. So he's in middle school and he tries to be the judge. And I said, I'm not going to help. I said, oh no. I said, considering what judges actually do, you know, I'd look at you like you lost your mind if you tell me as a kid you want to be somebody that does that. And, hey, we got enough problems in the legal system with clowns, you know, real clowns who decided their ambition was to be a judge from day one. So as soon as they got the chance, way too early in life, they became judges. They're not learned and experienced in the law, and they're certainly not wise in the ways of the world. They've never had to meet bills, pay for children, deal with mortgage problems, car notes, problems with dying relatives and everything else to see what life's really about.
All right.
Got a 27-year-old kid got elected youngest judge somewhere back east. He doesn't even have a law degree. So he comes in there, and I'm looking at it. I don't care. No, I'm not proud of that. That's ridiculous. He should have declined. You mess with somebody's life, and you have no idea, not even close, about that body of law that takes you until you're about 40-some years old to acquire, or that knowledge of humanity. See, that's what happened to King and Malcolm. They got killed at 39. They didn't even get the full manhood.
Right.
So you get 40, you got 20-some years of experience as a man. You are practiced. You know what it's about. You have some idea how the world. You have how the world works. You've got a lot of experience. You really do it. You're in your power.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get somebody. Oh, it's like they had a federal judge, Julia Gibbons, over here.
Mm-hmm.
Or a husband, Bill Gibbons, who lately was our DA here. Who, by the way, when he got sworn in as DA couldn't find the criminal courthouse, 201 Poplar, because he's never been in it, but he's the DA. You know, the governor appointed him. Yeah, great. Do we care about qualifications? No. Well, his wife, Julia Gibbons, the Right Honorable, who's now on the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, well, she decided to have her children first and help send her new hubby through law school. When he got through law school, she immediately went, because her 3 kids were old enough, I guess, to go to a babysitter. So she graduates from law school. She's 29 years old. She takes the bar exam. Now, in Tennessee, you have to be 30 years old minimum to be a state judge. So she turns 30 a week or two before she goes through her swearing-in ceremony. Well, then Governor Lamar Alexander appoints her a circuit court judge 3 days after she's sworn into the bar. So literally the first courtroom she ever went into, she was the judge. So the biggest rookie in the whole room is the judge. Yeah. And then Ronald Reagan appointed her to a federal district court judgeship down here. She hadn't been out of law school a year and a half.
Wow, man.
See, that's what I'm talking about. And I say, you know, the citizens around here went through about 20-some years, 25 years worth of injustice waiting on her to find out what she was supposed to be doing. Gentlemen, the court has no idea what any of you are talking about. You'll all have to brief this in detail. Everybody goes, brief this? I haven't seen this in 15 years. Everybody knows what this is. Where the hell is it listed?
Wow.
Or you get an appellate court case, like one went up to the Sixth Circuit. The judges up there took a look at it and said, who in the world did this? And when we told them, they said, look. And the Chief Justice looked at somebody else, and then they sort of removed their, you know, chairs, which are on, you know, on rollers. They sort of slid them together, huddled, and said, look, if everybody allows it, there's no point in sending this back down below. It'll never get done right. We'll decide this case if you don't mind waiting 2 or 3 extra weeks. He argued, you know, of course, go ahead. He did something so stupid that the firm I was with wasn't involved initially in the case. But she did something so stupid that the winning plaintiff had to retain counsel for the appeal. Her lawyer had to retain counsel for appeal. The losing defendants had to retain new counsel for the appeal. And the law firm that represented the defendants had to get counsel for the appeal. She messed it up so bad because she didn't know what she was doing. And you see, there have been some examples like that locally. Not many, but a few. And you've got a judge in there who does not know anything about life. He has not been matured. He has not gone through the passion with the fights in front of a jury. He hasn't filed an appeal. He hasn't understood what it's like for a client to be broke but really trying, or a client to be able but just being trite. So he hasn't sat across the desk from enough people to learn life, or actually been out there doing investigations and learning how the world works. And he's sitting up there, or she's sitting up there, and they're in charge, and they just come up with manifest injustice after injustice. And I look at it in the fashion that translates over into the political scene, where everybody's always talking about, oh, we need somebody younger and newer. Oh, hell, they don't know what the hell they're doing.
That sounds like it. It sounds just about right, Judge.
New and improved, hell, it ain't even improved. It's just new.
But when you say that, I'm thinking about those young people this past weekend. I mean, like, they just not, I don't know, like, they naive. It works for you when you're young to be naive and I just wonder how this stuff gonna turn out 20 years later.
Well,
like you said.
Part of what's going wrong today is what? Parents don't act like parents. They want to be friends with their children, so the children get to dictate what they want to do, not the parents.
Right.
So these kids are ignorant in life. They're spoiled. They feel entitled, and they feel entitled just like they think they have entitlement to the good life and $180 pair of Air Jordans, even if they'll never play basketball. They have an entitlement to be part of, I'm stylish, even though somebody's broke, can't afford it, or that's not the wise thing to do. They feel entitled to be safe. And nobody on this planet has ever achieved a condition of safety or security without earning it, personally and collectively. It is dangerous being free. That is the most dangerous thing in the world, and being free has a lot of collateral damage that comes along with it because it's not a safe condition. Do you know where the safest place in the 20th century was?
What?
To be a good Nordic person in Nazi Germany in the 5 years before World War II. That was the safest place in the world to be. But what kind of institution was it?
That's deep.
Now, if you were Jewish, one hell of a bad place to be.
Yeah. Well,
not for anything else except the mythical Superman.
Mm.
Aryans, who's actually happened to be dark-skinned, they came through in the Indus River Valley in India, but, that's a technical detail that nobody wants to deal with. But bottom line is, hey, the safest place to be is in a totalitarian society.
We heading for that way, thing.
Got a new wife, right? He's in the Navy. His wife's in the Navy, but she was born in Russia. Her parents are from Russia, but they're nationalized. Naturalized. Interesting thing from that side is this. What is it that you notice the difference between being in a totalitarian regime when it was still the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, versus in Russia? Well, it was a lot safer under the Soviets because you didn't have to worry about crime, nobody bumping you off. Now, you can take your life in the hands walking through Moscow in some places or a former Soviet, now Russian city, just like you do if you're in the wrong hood.
Right.
But you don't have anybody doing that I Spy thing on you. So it was safer under the communist regime than it is under the free democratic regime. And, therein lies the difference. Under a free democratic regime, you're supposed to look out for yourself because you don't want to leave your public, personal, collective safety to the government. Why? Because the ideal protector is also the ideal oppressor. So the U.S. Constitution was written with the right of self-defense and the Second Amendment in it for two reasons. The Constitution has these checks and balances between the judiciary that interprets the law, the executive that enforces the law, and the legislative that makes up the law along with the judges. Judges and the legislative body make the law. All law in America is the common law until superseded by statutory law. So all law in America is judge-made law until a legislative body supersedes it by passing a law. You have that check and balance system, so no one can be all-powerful. You can't be a judge and a president at the same time, or a congressman and a judge at the same time. Now, next thing, there is the state system and then the federal system, and they set each other off. Well, the federal government's all-powerful right now, but don't forget the Civil War. More Americans died on each side in the Civil War than have died in all the rest of the wars the U.S. has been in all together. Bloody mess. Now, there's another check and balance. It's the citizens themselves. If the citizens are able to arm themselves, they could serve as a check to an oppressive government, either on the state or the federal level. It sounds crazy now to the modern mind, but when the stuff hits the fan, it actually works out okay. And there was a thing that in Old English law, if you had a duty to do something, that very same thing became a reciprocal right. It was the duty of all yeomen, all commoners, to be well versed with the longbow and to possess bow and arrows in a sufficient amount, as well as a battle helmet, sufficient armor, and accoutrements to be a bowman for His Highness the King. And the English depended upon the commoner to give them their battle prowess, not mounted knights. British knights fought dismounted to back up the archers. Well, okay, that developed a thing about what you call the militia. The militia in Old English common law was that body of able-bodied males between 16 and 60 in any shire or district who had the duty to be proficient with arms and, when called upon, to respond thusly as armed individuals ready to uphold the crown. Well, when they colonized America, that was the same system, except they had nobody to call on, so it became even more important. In other words, you're taking and stealing the land from the Native Americans, so they might get a little hostile about it. So to keep yourself from getting scalped, you had the duty to be proficient with arms, and all people had the duty and the right to keep and possess firearms. See, when they say right, it also implies a duty that you be ready for the collective defense. Now, that just meant, hey, guys, come on, we got to go do something. Somebody's about to get scalped.
Right.
So that got written into the Constitution because at that point, the United States was essentially 13 colonies located along the Atlantic coast, and there was a whole wilderness for a couple of thousand miles going to the west coast that was barren. You know, nobody knew what that was about. So that was written into the law. It was also written into the law as a right because it was a duty. And that duty, exercised as a right, allowed the citizens to tell an oppressive government, oh, no, you don't. We're not going there. And we don't need you. See, when America was founded as a country by the Constitution that was passed in 1789 and the Bill of Rights was ratified in 1791, police had not yet been invented. That would come in another 40 or 50 years in England when they came up with the constabulary based in Scotland Yard, the street in London. So what are you supposed to do when there are no police?
Yeah.
The community provides its own law and order. You had the sheriff, who is known as the shire referee of disputes within the shire. And the sheriff became the one who was the official embodiment of this authority, and he had the authority to form posses and posse comitatus and deputize so that when necessary you could be essentially involuntarily drafted to go help out.
Wow.
And if somebody got out of control, oh, here we go. And see, after the U.S. won the revolution and got free from Britain, what is the first thing they did? They disbanded the army. Totally disbanded. They kept a navy because of piracy. Piracy was so devastating they even wrote it into the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, that made it the duty of the President and the Navy to pursue and eradicate piracy wherever found in the world. And this is the one the conservatives don't get. It says specifically, and enforce the law of nations. That is a constitutional mandate. It's not an option. It's a must. By the way, that's a good, legitimate reason for why you can have a fight against so-called terrorists. Not the war on terror, it's fighting piracy. 9/11, they hijacked 4 airplanes, and under amendments to the Constitution, which are also part of the supreme law of the land, piracy has been defined nowadays in modern times as hijacking aircraft. The Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution makes it the absolute mandatory duty of the Commander-in-Chief in the U.S. Navy to pursue and eradicate piracy wherever found in the world. That's in the Marine Corps hymn. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, where the U.S. Marine Corps famously, along with the Navy, wiped out the Barbary pirates of the country's history.
Right.
And the SEALs took out bin Laden. So there you go. But we don't pay attention to these little slight details. But you see, the whole scheme is predicated on you don't want to have a perfect society in terms of law enforcement, because that also allows a perfectly oppressed society like Nazi Germany. So that's why you have to have probable cause. See, people gamble all the time, everywhere, on Super Bowl, little things on who's going to win the card game, a little penny ante bet here and there. It's all illegal, except in maybe Nevada. But you don't get busted for it because there's got to be probable cause before somebody can violate your clothes by just coming in and looking. And by clothes, I mean CLOSE, not the stuff you wear. That means inside your castle. So, in other words, cops may come down. You got two rookie cops. I bet these guys are gambling in where these parties are, obviously, because it's Super Bowl. Let's go in and bust some people for gambling. When they come in and do it, it doesn't stand because they broke the law. You would rather some degree of criminal activity carry on if it's not so bad that it does not disturb public peace, dignity, and order. You'd rather that than to have a totalitarian government. So rather than having police roam up and down armed with heavyweight artillery looking for people going wrong, you back them off so they can't be used by one of our typical type of local politicians who would probably be hell if he could manipulate the police department into directly and lawfully coming in and jacking somebody up for a political purpose, which they do unofficially. But that's why you have the right of self-defense and the right to keep and bear arms to protect yourself and to protect the community as a whole, separate and apart from any organized military enterprise by a government. And the other thing is, since people talk about M15s, why do you need AR-15s? Why do you need a military rifle? Well, since this country was founded, the civilian population has always had access to the military rifle. They had access to the Springfield trapdoor. They had access to the the Craig Jorgensen bolt action. They had access to the 1903 Springfield. They started making it up in the customs borders 5 to 6 years after the military adopted. You could buy M1 Garand's mail order with no background check. You could buy M1 Carbine's mail order with no background check for about 30-some years. And they still sell them to civilian applicants who just want to come up and claim they want to use it for organized target practice. You can get one. You can buy a civilian M14. A company called Springfield. Again, it used to manufacture stuff for the military, but that went defunct, so they bought the title and they manufactured the stuff privately. But you can buy the next battle rifle. You can buy a semi-auto edition of the M16/M4, and it's not an assault rifle because it's just a semi-auto varmint gun. What they usually use them for in the hunting world is to hunt varmints. Coyotes, rabbits, squirrels, gophers, groundhogs, stuff like that. Most states it's too small to hunt deer with legally. But it's easy to make. You don't have to have somebody spend forever carving a block of wood out to put in a hunk of steel that somebody's got to carefully trim down with a file to get the fit. And then maybe or maybe not, it'll shoot where it's looking. You can just take a torque wrench and some tools, and everybody can bolt together an AR-15 or a clone, and you've got an accurate rifle that's easy to shoot, low recoil, and it's ergonomically sound, and nobody has a problem with it except those who are scared of it because they didn't go out and exercise their duty as citizens to be proficient in arms separate and apart from the military. What happens if you have a national disaster? Hurricane season, another widespread thing that's bigger than what happened down in New Orleans. Now, what are you going to do? What if E.T. lands next week? It's possible reality. Are you keeping up with how many potentially habitable planets they found orbiting around other stars lately? It's in the level of several 100,000 now.
Yeah, I believe there's life on other planets. No, I believe.
Yeah, so what the hell happens when E.T. lands? Greetings, take me to your leader. We do not come in peace.
We don't use guns. We don't believe in.
All you guys that have been overeating, we're looking at you to be tastily barbecued.
Yeah, I was also thinking, like, you talk about Nazi Germany. I was thinking about Benito Mussolini and the black shirts in Italy, where they got rid of the mafia. They controlled the mafia. They cracked down on them, but at what cost?
Yeah, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, one thing about the mafia, they don't let this dynamic of violence spill over into what they call civilians, meaning women and children and ordinary people.
Okay.
They kill somebody for going around robbing neighbors, selling drugs where they live. Or
your house is your castle, right? Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So I guess they have family values.
Yeah, that's it. They used to do pieces to my show all the time. I'd know who they were because I could tell about the type of case. It would have some issue about man up in it. Why do you send me these cases? Because when we resolve them, it gets kind of messy on the sidewalk. You can do it. Plus, you push this man up thing that we also push.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the reality.
It is. Wow.
But you see, there's a difference. Yo, man, it's like black mafia. No, it's not, because they protect their communities. The citizens don't turn them in because they make sure that the guy gets his pension when he retires, that nobody rapes the ladies, or if somebody jacks somebody around, they get a visit. You don't slap your woman around like this. This is not the way to do. Or what happened with this old lady who says you came in and burglarized her?
Mm-hmm. So basically, they got a code, and you trying to say that, I guess black community does not have a code in general.
No, we don't have that. See, it's manhood versus just animalhood. See, this is also what's so bad. Ulysses Grant, former commanding general of the Union Army, and also President Grant for 2 terms, wrote his memoirs, and they're very easy to read, but one of the things he says in there is things about the black soldier, the colored soldier. He said at first he thought maybe they needed to just take their time and be drovers and serfs, and maybe after years they could do some lightweight soldiering. Well, there was some down in Milliken's Bend, right over here in Arkansas, where Grant had caused the Confederates to believe he was setting up a supply line. He had. And they were down there with some white troops and white officers. Well, when the Confederates attacked the fort down here at Milliken's Bend, the white troops ran and left the black ones there, but they wouldn't budge. They had one hell of a battle. And Grant had to say he'd never seen any troops who were braver or more forthright. He also noted that, unlike white troops, you never had to get on the black ones about hygiene. And you didn't have to worry about them getting drunk, because you know what they do?
What?
Nobody, no officer he'd ever run into, he had worked with colored troops, could say they'd ever seen a trooper without a book to read or a slate to practice his writing on. And also, he said he was astonished when he did a survey in the Union Army, and guess what? He found that the only totally literate units in the United States, well, the Union Army, were colored units. Now, what does that say about now?
Well,
Something happened, didn't it?
Yeah, drastically. I mean, I read places where they said that the former enslaved black folks were able to close the literacy gap within 20 years after emancipation.
Yeah.
Within 20 years, they were, a lot of black folks were literate.
Now, what happened? The highest literacy before World War, before the turn of the 20th century. Do you know the highest literacy rate in America with black folk, farmers, slaves, and their immediate descendants?
Yes, sir.
Now, what happened? You took the dad out the pad.
Yeah.
And we bought into that emasculation thing and that glamorization of the crook.
And you know what's interesting? You say that, I think about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, whose father was a former slave, but he taught his son how to be a man. Yeah. Carter G. Woodson father played a pivotal role in his development as a man of integrity and wanted to, share the history of his people. But his father was a former slave and told him basically don't take stuff on white folks.
Yes.
So, I mean, it is missing. I just think, even that study, even you look at the Williams sisters, their father played a pivotal role in their development. I mean, I read where they said he was getting beat up by gang members on tennis courts in South LA. Just so that his kids could practice tennis. He was willing to get his butt beat up by those gangs and drug dealers.
Yeah.
Just so his daughters can have a future. So, I mean, even John Thompson at Georgetown. Who else gave Allen Iverson a second chance after all that stuff?
I've got a thing, and I've got several women helping me with this one. It's called hashtag I love my dad. Hashtag man up, man time.
Right.
And by the way, anybody listening, it is actually me who tweets as Judge Joe Brown at Judge Joe Brown TV.
That's right.
Judge Joe Brown TV. I don't have that blue check. I don't know how the devil to get one. I don't want to sit up and provide credit cards and IDs because I don't trust their security. It seems like a disaster in the making. And I don't feel like setting up a website. But it is me. And by the way, the strongest support I get is from sisters who got raised by dads. It's important to the girls to get raised by dads. I say this all the time. You got dad in the house. Little girl wants, Daddy, could I have $20, please? Well, baby, I just gave you $20 the day before yesterday. Oh, Daddy, please, I need $20. I want to go shopping with my friend girls. Baby, look at here. You think Daddy's made out of money? He's strong, man. Oh, look, baby, here's 40. Now, don't bother me the rest of the week. You understand? Thank you, Daddy. And see, she pats him on the cheek. He smiles, and she knows how to deal with men when she grows up. The ones that don't have a dad in the home, they put one hand on one hip to waggle their head and go, let me tell you what I'm going to make you do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't. I just rather be alone. So I can't deal with that.
You can't find a man. Well, guess what? You find them, you can't keep them but 9 days before they say, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I do know the difference between women who were raised by a man or they have, they knew. I mean, it could help them to find out what they need to look for in a man to mate with, like certain characteristics. But it is a different experience dealing with a woman who had a father in her life versus one who did not have a father.
Good close grandfather or something.
Yeah, this is a father figure, some type of father type.
Stepfather.
Mm-hmm.
And then see, even black men make good fathers. For example, one of the people that worked closely with me on the show for 15 years, she was white. I didn't realize it until the last few years that when she was a year and a half old, her mother got remarried and her new father, who was a black man, adopted her. So she looked at him. She was in her late 40s. That was Dad.
Wow.
I love my dad more than anything I can think of.
Wow.
And you say, okay, fine.
That's interesting.
But you see, and by the way, let's debunk some myths since we're on this track. What ethnic group in America pays their child support the most regularly and on time?
African Americans, black men.
That's it.
Mm.
Number one, But even our little shyster president got up when Jesse had that open mic and said the end needs his balls cut off for that. What he was talking about is he got up and said, black men, African American men are the worst in the country about paying child support. He's talking to a white audience downtown Chicago on Father's Day.
Well, he know better than Ronald Reagan with the welfare queen coming.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And see, I know Jesse knew it because one time we were sitting together on an airplane. That was another conversation we had. And every year, every time we would go to these judicial conferences I've been to over the last 25 years, we would have these statistics on who pays. Black men have always been the best. But that's not the public image.
Yeah, but you know, it's a fear of black men. I know you always got to be a boogeyman for somebody. I think about that Willie Horton ad from '88. I remember that. I was young, but I remember when they aired that stuff.
Well, '88, guess what? I was training the public defender's capital defense team handling first-degree murder cases.
Okay.
So I remember that Willie Horton thing very well. And see, there are a whole lot of games that got run on us, like locally. Typical thing locally is when you have minorities, you get the Democratic Party locally trying to get the minorities to support the Democratic Party on a national level, but then too many of the local Democratic Party bigwigs, they support Republicans in the local race. And then nowadays, particularly in cities like Memphis or Atlanta, you've got a cadre of crooks who run around passing out ballots that they make people pay to get on, and the highest bidder gets on the ballot, and it's supposed to indicate this is the person to vote for because they're good. So they just paid somebody. And these cretins, these leeches, who have no interest in the well-being of the community, typically convicted felons at some point in their history, they do this because it's a money-making opportunity, and they're just like pimps or drug dealers. They don't care about the consequences of their actions. They just bring in a big chunk of change during the election period by putting out ballots, and they introduce conservative white Republicans, conservative anybody, to black congregations, get them off in the black churches, and they'll take money from a black Democrat running against a white Republican for the same race, and they'll take it from both of them, play them off. Now, sometimes white people are okay. You know, sometimes they might be the best qualified for a position. I'm not trying to be a racist. I'm just saying it turns out there's a racial impact because of the way it manifests, which is not good. Because speaking of this racial thing, you know what everybody ought to do? Do this AncestryDNA.com. And most people don't really pay attention to it. They'll keep sending you stuff. And they actually have tested these people, so it's not a guess. They turn out to be your blood relatives. So you will wind up, I started off with a little over 400, and now it's up above 700 people who've been tested who turn out to be my relatives. So it comes out, yeah, I've got white people in my tree, but it also turns out there are white people who find out they've got black folk in their tree. See where that goes? Like, oh, it starts blurring, and you start looking at their pie chart, and, you know, this is ordinary run-of-the-mill white person. But, oh, look, they've got 12% Nigerian ancestry. Where did that come from? Whoa, they got 28% African ancestry. That's more than a quarter. Might be from 2 or 3 different places, but it's in there. Or you're black and you find out you've got Spanish, Jewish, you've got Scandinavian, you got Irish, you got Native American, and you got African. So, you know, here's somebody fair-skinned, got more African in them than you do, and you're very dark. They just get the part about the color job, or the color scheme. But, you know, I ran into a white guy. He confided with me. He showed me his pie chart. Hell, he was almost 42% African.
Wow.
And he was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man.
Hmm.
And he got shocked all to no end. He had to do some drastic reorientation as to what he was all about.
Mm-hmm.
See, so this whole thing, now that we know better, it's kind of more like cultural identification. See, that cultural identification is very important. And I've run into white folk where I bought them a kit, say, hey, do it. No, I'm not going to do it. Why not? You afraid of what you find? Yeah, I am. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
They don't want to shake their family tree too hard, so they might fall out.
Oh, yeah, a whole lot. By the way, you know, when Haley did that thing on Kunta Kinte, his 10th generation ancestor, you know how many other ancestors he left out on the 10th generation? 1,022.
Oh, interesting.
And here's what you have. You have 2 parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1,024 ancestors on your 10th generation back. So you deal with Kunta Kinte and his slave mistress who got his foot cut off. So that's only 2 out of the 1,024 direct ancestors you have going back 10 generations. That might have been a little incest in there, but, you know, you never know. But technically, you have 1,024 ancestors on the 10th generation, 512 on the 9th, 256 on the 8th, 128 on the 7th, 6th, and so on down. So you've got a lot of people in that mix, and that's an awful lot of chance for something to get in your wood pile.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's why people don't. I mean, that's overwhelming about that many folks you descend from. And, you know, it's one generation.
Yeah. See, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in there.
I know when my mom is working on our family tree, and this is some fascinating stuff she turned up so far. She actually discovered some relatives who might have been in the Civil War. 3 black brothers joined the Union from Vicksburg, Mississippi, but they still looking into stuff. And they trace as far back to even the Revolutionary War. We might have some relatives they fought there. So I mean, she's very excited about the prospect, but there's so much stuff to look into.
You know, they drew 2 cavalry units of black troopers from Jackson, Tennessee, and Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
They had a number of so-called colored volunteers from West Tennessee.
Okay.
Grant kicked the Confederates behind here in Tennessee, took control of the Cumberland, Tennessee, and Mississippi rivers all through Tennessee, while the rest of the Union forces were getting their butts kicked by Robert E. Lee. So Tennessee quickly went over to being Union, and the Union Army of the West was headquartered in Memphis.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So these Johnny Rebs got put in their place very early.
But yet Nathan Bedford Forrest still has his home. His place
I got that. There's pushback. But by the way, do you know what the southern state was that was the one needed one to ratify the 13th Amendment? It was Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Also the 14th and 15th Amendment. By the way, the only former southern state, Confederate state, that did not snatch the vote from black folk was Tennessee. That was thanks to Boss Crump. Old man Crump is looked at as a boogeyman, but he actually came to Memphis because you were there at the Withers Museum.
Mm-hmm.
When that came out, it's Robert Church's father, Robert Church being the first black millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Church's father happened to be the richest plantation owner in Mississippi before the Civil War, and still the same afterwards. His 2 sons by his wife had gotten killed, so he left everything to Robert Church, but it was getting snatched away up here in the Memphis area, so Church's daddy sent up young Crump to take care of his black son's interests. So Boss Crump came to Memphis to protect the black man's property. And he figured out the best way to do it was to organize blacks into a voting bloc, which at that time was Republican. So Lincoln Republicans were almost a 100% black organization, and they voted as a bloc. So Crump brokered them, and he had that black bloc vote and a large white minority. He never had the majority of white voters to back him. He had a large white minority, but he wound up controlling politics because of the black bloc vote. So he made sure that they could always vote, and they never got the vote stripped from them in Tennessee, like in all the rest of the states of the former Confederacy.
Ain't that something? Yeah, this is a place where they killed Dr. King because of sanitation.
Well, that's because of the pushback. See, you got Medgar Evers assassinated within 50 miles of Memphis. You got Emmett Till lynched within 50 miles of Memphis, or 70, let's put it that way. You got those 4 workers that got buried in a levee within 70 miles of Memphis. And by the way they got found, it turns out now, is Hoover made a deal with the mob. They sent one of their chief enforcers down here, kidnapped the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, tortured him for several days, and got him to write out a confession that was pinned to his shirt as he was tied to a chair and turned over to the FBI. Why did Hoover make that deal with the gangsters? Well, Hoover had a thing against the Klan. You know what it turns out to be about? Because J. Edgar Hoover had parents who got crosses burned on their property by the Klan because they were black folk passing for white. So our chief enemy was at heart a black man who probably had as much black in his pie chart as a whole lot of folks.
Yeah, that makes sense, though. You think about it, that makes a lot of sense.
Look at Clarence Thomas. Really hates his own people. Really hates his own people because he's ashamed of being part of his own people.
Yeah, but I was wondering the other day, would Clarence Thomas have made it if he came of age during this era? Could Clarence Thomas make it like he did, back in the day?
I know how he made it. I'm very familiar with how he made it. I actually was part of what happened with him. Let me explain something. I never wanted to be a lawyer. But there was a whole thing with Ronald Reagan jacking up the catalogs in the University of California because he campaigned on the promise to kill off free higher education because he said it was nothing but hippies and commie sympathizers who were taking advantage of it, and they didn't need it for free. All right. So anyway, I get stuck with looking at a year before I can take this course for my intended major, and the U.S. Army was calling. So I decided to exercise prudence and do what my advisor said. He said, you can declare political science as a major. It isn't, but you have enough courses to make it that way and then go to grad school. Well, I didn't particularly have anything against Ho Chi Minh at that point. And this was 1969, so going on 70, so, there were a whole lot of grievances. So I said, well, let me go ahead and make this declaration. So I said, what am I going to do? So everybody said, why don't you go to law school? I don't want to be a damn lawyer. Hell, man, been doing all this stuff politically. Well, yeah, I guess I need to see what it's about. So I took the LSAT, and I just kicked ass on it. And I didn't even know it. So I started getting all these letters from all these colleges, and I got one from Yale. And they brought me back there, and they wanted to recruit me. And I said, why do you want to recruit me? Said, well, you're somebody black who can get in the front door, and we want to set up a minority admissions program. Why? Well, the leaders of America all go to Yale Law School, so we want the people from the mainstream to meet all the minorities so they can network with them and understand them and include them in what they will be doing as the leaders of America, and we want minorities to establish their leadership credentials and network through Yale Law School and its alumni. All right, great. But there's 5 feet of snow out there on the ground, and, you don't even have any green. The campus comes right up to the sidewalk, and then there's the street It looks like somebody's downtown rather than a college campus, and these hallways are depressing and dark. Well, they tried to tell me that if you go to Yale, you can't flunk out. I said, I wouldn't flunk out anyway. Well, yeah, you're good. You got everything you need to be a great student. Okay, fine. I said, well, thanks, but no thanks. I'll go to UCLA, back there in California, Hollywood, where, hey, Hollywood, yeah, lots of fine women, even if you don't get caught up with that other crazy industry, Hollywood, la la land, LA, la la land, Clarence Thomas was admitted a couple of years later, and he, since we kept up with these things, was literally the last person they admitted for that year. Now, I remember distinctly them telling me that you can't flunk out of Yale. You couldn't flunk out of UCLA either, or better law schools, because they said that reflected on them. They let you withdraw but not flunk you out, because they said if we pick you, you can make it. So we don't want to make any bad choices. So anyway, Clarence Thomas, being the last admittee for that year, really screws up. So guess what? This fool actually flunks out. So it went around. You hear that little handkerchief head bozo that, won't participate in anything up there? Because in those days, the BSUs and the BALSA, Black Law Students Association, everybody was close. We were networking. So the word went out, he flunked. So they started sending him around the country that summer to speak against affirmative action, which is how he got into Yale, was on the affirmative action program. They were trying to recruit me to set up the parameters for. So I knew about it. I kept up with it. So after he went around all summer bad-mouthing minority recruitment, for the conservative side, this one conservative professor says, oh, I made a mistake. It wasn't a D. I should have given him a B. So he stayed in. And then for the next 2 summer breaks, they drugged that handkerchief head Negro, with due respect, around all over the United States to speak out against affirmative action. Now, see, affirmative action is not what people think it is. Affirmative action was predicated on the thing that you need to develop leadership. And if you don't develop it in all communities, your daughter that you think so much of may foolishly run out of gas in the wrong neighborhood late in the evening. And when she coasts off the freeway to a gas station, the leadership in that neighborhood is a bunch of thugs, pimps, drug dealers, and cutthroats and gangsters. You don't want it. So you want leadership so that community prospers and they don't adventure in their cars out to where you live. See, that's the background. So anyway, when he got out of law school, he got hired by the state attorney general's office in a state where you didn't have to take the bar, because if you graduated from Yale, you were waived in. So they had him in the tax section, but they had him every other week making appearances all over America to speak against affirmative action. Now, while this was going on, I was working for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and we were trying to do some good things, and we had power in those days to be effective. Well, 1980 comes around, and St. Ron the Reagan gets in, and he's going through all that thing about let's kill off free higher education, and we got to kill off EEOC. So they hire this clown who has done no legal work, been in no court, to be director of EEOC, meaning Clarence Thomas. And by the way, I talked to Anita Hill, and she wasn't lying. She was telling the truth about it.
Okay.
That's what we knew about it. The handkerchief head Negro that hated himself. His mother was literally a prostitute, and his daddy's father, that his grandfather, adopted him. So all the rest of his siblings were destitute, and a couple of them turned out to be prostitutes too, I think. So he hated the whole bunch. The daddy was well-to-do and owned a whole bunch of apartment buildings, so he could afford this. Anyway, when they point this little 20, what was he? I think he was like 26, 27, 28, they appointed him over EEOC. And as Anita Hill told me, he tried to kill it just like he was put in place to kill EEOC. Well, he kind of botched stuff up pretty bad for 2.5 years. And then they rewarded him by appointing him to the Second Circuit Court of Appeal. Well, at that point, this fool had never been in front of a court. So he shows up again like the incident I just talked to you about earlier as an appellate judge on the federal level. He just hit 30. So Anita Hill told me, she said the FBI came and talked to her. She said, I didn't bother. It's just an appellate court. They've got idiots on it. Couldn't kill off anything, He'll probably be harmless or be put in check. Said when they came up and nominated the Supreme Court, she said at first, I don't have anything to say. And then when they got ready to hit the door, she says, wait a minute. I got to tell on him. He's too dangerous to be in his position. So see what they did, Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, what he did is he picked a black person who he knew that the liberal element in Congress and the Senate would not attack, right? Because he was black, but he picked the most black-hating conservative lackey he could find to put on that court, who had never tried a case as a lawyer, never presided over a case as a judge that was the jury trial, never had an appellate case as a lawyer, never talked to a client across the table, and had been hired with a self-hating thing where he had been running around for all of these years from his law school career starting about 1974 up to about 1980. That's 6 years bad-mouthing black folks. And then they're going to put him on at a very early age. He wound up being one of the youngest Supreme Court justices ever. And this fool has no experience, certainly not wise in the ways of the world, and they make him Supreme Court justice. And then our dear Obama, who had two choices, chose not to try and offset him. I find that inexcusable. When he got in and made his first nomination, the first somebody he should have gotten was a real live black person who wasn't ashamed of what he or she was. And it's what happened. So now, Clarence Thompson is the last somebody black that's going to be on the Supreme Court for a long time.
Well, he came in handy for 2000, the 2000 election, or mis-election, whatever it was.
Who?
Clarence Thomas. I mean, he came in handy when they had that, try to figure out the vote between Gore and Bush.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what they wrote, these conservatives, the Lee and the bunch? They said it is not unconstitutional to deprive a voter of the effect of his vote if it does not materially alter the outcome of the election. Now, what the hell happened?
It altered the outcome.
The Freedom of Information Act counted the actual votes. Al Gore got 62+% of the Florida vote. And you know what was wrong? It wasn't dangling chads. The real problem was the ballots were printed off register and the machine simply couldn't read them. But when you looked at them in hand, you could easily tell what was voted on. So the judge that had the case, the federal judge, set up a team of statisticians from the Gore side, the Bush side, and some she appointed, and they all came up with, statistically, it's indicating that Gore is getting about 60% of the vote. So Kathleen Harris, who's been the elected election commissioner for the state of Florida, but who had volunteered to be co-chair of the Bush campaign, which ethically would have required her to have resigned her state position, she runs out and calls the election. The state Supreme Court unanimously said that's not what we intended. The Florida legislature passed an act, a resolution saying that's not what we intended when we passed this law here. 2 or maybe 3 years before, every court said it. And then the U.S. Supreme Court with these conservative judges who said judicial activism is a horrible thing, they decided to be active. They seized the case prematurely, and they made that cockamamie ruling. And then, see, our press did it so irresponsible and lackadaisical that they report the fact that CNN, UPN, USA Today, and UPI all got a team of statisticians together, and they counted every single ballot in Florida. And Gore got more than 62% of the vote.
Yeah, well, you see how it had an effect on history. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it really had an effect on this country's trajectory. So
yeah. And see, these things are important.
Mm-hmm.
But, there it is. See, you have one party that's more interested in extraneous, the Democratic Party, and doesn't focus on essentials. And you got another party that's more interested in ideologues rather than competence. And both of them together, you leave a mess. So we don't have any effective governance these days. It's the pit. It coasts because the system itself has its own inertia. And actually, as far as worldwide governances go, the farm is one of the best. In fact, probably the best ever invented. But it's like anything. It's got rules. And guess what the rules are about?
What are they?
Sporting event. Is it the rules that make the game awful or good? No, it's the team and how they play it. It's the personnel. You play basketball, you got the same rules. You may have bad referees, but the game depends upon the quality of the players and the teamwork. Got a football team, rules are the same for both teams. Sometimes you get bad calls by the ref, and the ref, by the way, the referees correspond to the judiciary.
Mm-hmm.
The legislative body corresponds to the legislative body. I mean, you got the executive out there on the field playing the game. So the quality of the players determines the outcome of the game. It's a lousy game, you might say, but the rules are the rules, and they bend the rules, and they make the game what it is. They may change them. Sometimes the rules are bad. Sometimes they need improvement. I think in basketball, for example, to speed the game up again, they need to drop the shot clock down to 16 seconds. It's gotten so slow compared to the way it used to be. They palm the ball. What they do used to be called palming. Now, a foul.
Yeah, they do too much dribbling, too. I know they do a lot of extra dribbling. Like you said, it might speed up the game and make it more better.
Dribbles where you had to hit the flat of your hand on the ball instead of being able to move it over like everybody does. Now, you got to move fast.
Mm-hmm.
Now they just do that. What used to be the infraction, the foul, you palm the ball and go over to the other side. They do it all the time. And they get paid multiple $1 million, and they don't run down the field. They just load. And the championship game, the playoffs, 62-54. It used to be if you went to a pro game and it wasn't at least that by halftime, people would walk out in disgust and boo.
What was that?
Now, they play what used to be called a prevent defense and a stall offense. You know, it's interesting. So, wow, we whoopee. But it's not the rules of the game, it's the players. And see, the rules of the game, as they're set up here for the United States, have had some very bad players in the past. But the rules compared to the other rules that other governmental systems use are not bad. To begin with, they're modeled on ancient Rome. The Senate is modeled on the Roman Senate. The House of Representatives is modeled on the Roman House of Plebes. That was the plebeian council for the ordinary people. If you were a Roman citizen, you were entitled to a trial, and you were entitled to have representation by counsel. You had a right to an appeal if you lost. And if the official did not go for your position and you were still dissatisfied, you could appeal to the mob, and the mob would hear the case and decide.
Interesting.
So it's based on an ancient system that worked then, but it got refined, and people had some ideas. See, they had what they called the 100 Years' War, the matter of religion that had shook all Europe up for more than a century, and it was within the living memory of the fathers of some of the people that wrote the Constitution. So they knew good and well, let's not, we're not going to have any official religion because people kill each other too easily behind that kind of stuff. So we'll just eliminate it. We need this freedom of speech because you don't want to have somebody muzzled, but we expect everybody to be responsible, this kind of thing and what they say, and we expect stuff to work by consensus. We have the House. It is mercurial because they're elected every 2 years and they're in sharp touch with the public. But then we have the 6-year elected Senate who cools them down so they get reasonable. As it was explained to Jefferson when he said, why do we need a bicameral setup, a House and a Senate? Somebody said, why do you pour your tea into your saucer? He said, to cool it off. He said, that's precisely why. He said, oh, that makes sense. And why do you have a board of electors? Well, everybody didn't know everybody, but you had the electoral college who would investigate people. One of the things they used to check out back when was, does this guy qualify? It's not just being a citizen. You had to be a citizen in a different way to be eligible for president, so you didn't become a secret sleeper agent for a foreign power. You had to be born in the continental United States, or you had to be within the territory of what became the United States prior to the Constitution being adopted. If, for example, right now, Cruz is not eligible to run for president because he's born in Canada. He's an American citizen, but to be a presidential candidate and be sworn in by the college, they have to be satisfied that, hey, you were born in either a state, territory, protectorate, or zone of the United States government. That's the canal zone, that's an embassy, a consulate, military, naval base, that kind of thing. If you're born in Puerto Rico, you can run for president. If you were born in American Samoa, you can run for president. You're born in Hawaii, you can run. Lincoln was born in a territory, the Illinois Territory. Several presidents were born in territories that weren't states when they were born. Okay, Tennessee used to be a territory of North Carolina and operated and adopted North Carolina common law. But Andrew Jackson was born in the territory of Tennessee. He wasn't born in a state. Tennessee was not one of the original states. He's a racist bastard, but a low down, vicious psychopath. But, that is what it is. So we've got a thing. So here you have Tom Cruise. He's not Cruise, but Cruz. And he says, I'm an American citizen. Sure, one of your parents was an American citizen. That's all that is required. But you were born in Canada, so you can't run for president. And you know what? That's clearly set forth in the Constitution, and not one of the media outlets picked that up. But they jumped all over Obama. But, it wasn't whether you were an American citizen. See, that was not the birthgate thing. It was, were you born in Hawaii or were you born somewhere else? Your mother is an American citizen, so it's not that you aren't a citizen, but are you eligible to be the president?
Right.
The one part of the Constitution sets forth clearly the designation of how you are a citizen or become one. And then the other one, it deals with the presidential thing, specifically denotes that you cannot be a naturalized citizen. Do you remember when people wanted to have a constitutional amendment so they could get Arnold Schwarzenegger, California's governor, to run for president? That's what that was all about. Why? Because you don't want a sleeper agent for a foreign government to become president of the United States. That's scary.
I mean, but did people fear that with Kennedy because of his religion?
Yeah,
they be more loyal to the vote.
The Constitution says you can't consider that. People talk about this as a Christian nation. Well, interestingly enough, the Constitution clearly says treaties are the supreme law of the land. And the very first treaty the United States signed was with France. And at that time, the French offered a treaty presented to the U.S. Senate that said basically France, being a great Catholic Christian nation, hereby entreats with another Christian nation, the new United States of America. And the Senate quickly wrote in a caveat, said it must be understood this is not a Christian country. This is not a country that is a respecter of religion. It has no religion. That's in the treaty. First treaty the Senate ratified, which under the Constitution is part of the supreme law of the land. They wrote that language in there. So when you get all of the right-wing neocon religious types talking about America's always been a Christian nation, well, the first Senate to ratify a treaty didn't think that way. You hear all this language about, you hear the right wing talking about the anathema of judges trying to make law and legislate. Why doesn't the news media report just say the very first case heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, 1792, was on the issue of what was meant in the Sixth Amendment when it says, no case tried before a jury upon the common law shall be heard upon appeal except upon application of the common law. The case was simple. What is the common law? Is what the judges said. We hold that the common law is as decided by the English House of Lords in 1661 in the case of so on and so forth. The common law is, quote, that body of judge-made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. It says it's judge-made, and it says it changes with the evolving conditions of society. But you get these right-wing goons who are ignorant as they can be. They swear up and down that the original intent was that it's supposed to remain stagnant, just like it was back in 1787, 1791. But here the first Supreme Court is on the very first case saying evolving conditions of society. And then further, about judge-made law, they said this: all law in America is judge-made until superseded by statute, ordinance, or regulation passed by a duly constituted and qualified legislative body with the power to do so. So all law in America is judge-made until a legislative body overturns it or supplements it. For example, up until 1988, assault and battery. A whole lot of people got charged with assault and battery. There was no statute. The assault and battery rules were set up by judges. It was a judge-made condition of law. It was common law. Judges knew what it was. Lawyers knew what it was because they were studying it, but there was no formal saying this is assault and battery. How did they define it? An assault is putting someone in a state of apprehension that they will be immediately subjected to an unpermitted touching. What is an unpermitted touching? That is a battery. What is a battery? A battery is an unpermitted touching not done in the sense of pleasantry. What does that mean? You walk up and say, hey, Al, what's happening, man? I haven't seen you since high school, man. Slaps him on the back. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I thought you were one of my very best friends. Oh, that's all right. Say it's an unpermitted touching, but it was done in the sense of pleasantry, so it was not a battery.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, if you weren't so old, I would run you through with my sword. Well, that was prosecuted successfully as an assault. It was overturned on appeal. Why? Because the guy put a condition in there that was obvious. If you weren't so old, I would run you through. So in other words, it was not such as to cause someone to be immediately apprehensive. See, they punk the law. They say, was he in fear of an assault? No, the law says apprehension. What's the difference between fear and apprehension? Easy enough. You got a 245-pound all-pro linebacker, and he can take a beating and dish it out, and there is a senile 95-year-old woman on a cane and she draws her hand back. You make me sick, young man, and she goes to slap him on the arm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's certainly not fearful, but he's apprehensive he will be struck without permission. That's an assault. When you saw them, were you frightened? Did you have fear? Yes, I had fear. No, I had apprehension. I wasn't afraid. I had my pistol on him. I was going to shoot the fool if he went for his. But, you know, you don't have to be in fear. You have to be apprehensive. But they punked the law. They want it to be somebody is in a condition of fear, which is a biological state. You know, fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those kind of things. See, the law is very interesting. It tries to accommodate human nature. So I've gone on long enough right now. Boy, how long have we been talking?
Almost 4 hours. I want to ask you about the Penny Hardaway hire.
45 minutes.
Yes, sir. I just want to ask you about the Penny Hardaway hire and your thoughts about the Stormy Daniels situation, like from a legal standpoint.
You know, I kind of keep my attention away from matters of gossip on purpose. Some things ought to be the individual's business, and we ought to keep our noses out of it. That stuff used to be on the back page of the last section of the newspaper, last column. And then, you know, you had the tabloids, then you had the soaps, and now it's mainstream. But I don't know. I don't even know what happened. That's not something I'd read.
It's what it's like with all the great stuff you just said about law and stuff. People don't want it. They want the if it leads type of stuff and sex sales and stuff, salacious details. Like you said, it's the era of bread and circuses, weapons of mass distraction.
Well, you know where it really went wrong when news became an alternate form of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Television used to run news not as something to garner ratings, but as what they were required to do under federal FCC law. It was a public service that was mandatory. So they'd have a half-hour news session. And they would say, this is an interesting story. If we get any more details, we will interrupt programming to bring you up to date. They didn't conjecture on what do you think is going to happen, what do you think happened. It is reported today the New York Police Department made 3 arrests in a matter wherein there are allegations that 5 consecutive bank robberies were pulled off at various branches of Chase Manhattan Bank. There have been no confessions, and the detectives have not issued any statements. You know, and that's okay. And if anything came up, you'd find out about it. Nowadays, well, what do you think happened, Al? Well, I don't know. They, 5 banks, they must have really had this planned out and organized, and I just don't know, but that's probably what happened. What do you think, Tommy? Oh, well, Al, you're probably right. They must have had a real inner network to do this. Hell, they don't know anything about it any more than you do. And
right.
If you go online, you can get the same news feed they have that they're telling that to you, and you can get your own opinion off of it. And, you know, what they say in Star Wars, bringing back that again, the patience is a great virtue. Be patient.
So what you thought about the Penny Hardaway hire for Memphis basketball? You see any promise in that?
Who's he going to be coached for?
Who's going to be? Say that again.
Is he going to be coaching?
Yeah, he's going to be coaching for the University of Memphis Tigers. And I guess recruiting for them as well, too. I mean, he was coaching the East.
He played for it. I get a little bone to pick with Mr. Hardaway.
Okay.
Kind of funny. See, he and the mothers of some NBA players, that's Magic Johnson's mother, Coach Jackson's mother, Wesley Snipes' mother, and Penny's grandmother and mother, they had this thing where they put on these basketball camps, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd have NBA players come in and show basketball stuff to inner city youth. Well, they always have me speak on character. So they lied to me and told me about this great trip down to Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outright lied, glorified it. So we're staying in this area next to a country club.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was into running in those days, so I had to have on a thick running suit in this hot, humid weather with socks over the bottom of the running pants, gloves over this thing, and I had them in my suitcase because I just left Chicago when it was winter. And I bought a mesh head cover because of the mosquitoes that they had around this golf course at night that you need anti-aircraft weaponry to shoot down. They beat the devil out of me, and they lied to me to get me there. Talking about how nice it was going to be. And as I was jogging, I tripped over a 10-foot alligator that was out on the course.
Oh, wow.
I think I scared the devil out of him. He took off and hit the water.
Oh, geez. Whoa.
I mean, anyway, it's kind of a joke. But they did a good thing, and he had a charity foundation. I was on his board of directors for that for a while. Didn't do much, but I was on the board, so he's cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know people are excited about it. I mean, I know they say he's a decent, I mean, like the when you was at East, say he did a great job. I mean, they had one of the top high school programs in the country.
Well, you know who your sidekick that always hangs around with him?
Who was that?
Real cool brother. Do you remember the sitcom with Urkel?
Yeah, Family Matters.
Yeah, that's his own boy.
Oh, the dude that plays Steve Urkel?
Yeah.
Jaleel White? Okay, I can see that.
You're too cool to be that dude. You look like, yeah, man, it was me. I was Urkel. Oh, man. No way.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty cool brother. He was nothing like the character he played.
Yeah, I know sometimes they have him play like his alter ego or whatever. Like it's kind of like a nutty professor thing. But yeah, that was a pretty good show. It's funny how they bringing back all these shows from the '90s now. It's like 1998 all over again.
Why are they doing it?
Why?
You know, the most important thing for that whole entertainment industry is ideas, and you know what? They're bereft of them. They don't have many, so they're redoing everything for the third, fourth time.
Even American Idol. I mean, got these low ratings, but they supposed to have retired that American Idol thing. But,
bottom line is, you run out of ideas. The public sees enough of it. The judicial shows I was part of, we killed off the soap operas because that was a real live thing, not something made up.
Wow. I guess everything has its time.
They're trying to grab me back and put me back into the industry because guess what? Mathis retired. I got mad at my frat. You know, they were congratulating Mathis, you know, the longest running show, 19 years, although he wasn't the first black judge on TV. Joe Brown was. This man is frat. I sent him a nasty letter. I said, hell, fool, I am too. Oh, yeah, well, guess what? Kind of upsets your dignity, you know? You got 30 years of seniority on somebody and they diss you. I mean, that's a shame.
It is a shame. I mean, people got short memories, or they like, it's funny how human nature is sometimes about stuff.
I've been in the frat for more than 50 years. You take a newcomer and you get all proud of him, don't realize that one of your long-time members was the first.
You're an alpha man, Angel. You're an alpha man?
Right. So, you know, it is what it is. You know something, speaking of which, when I pledged, they beat this into me, but it's something that black people ought to get a handle on. It's Invictus. Now, they had a movie where Morgan Freeman did a good job of playing Nelson Mandela. But Invictus was a poem written by Henley. It is very pertinent to what's going on and what a black man ought to keep in his soul. Out of the night that covered me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloodied but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, yet the passing of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. In other words, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff up there. It may jack you up, jam you up. You may have a bloodied head, but it ain't bowed. They didn't beat you down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're dead, and there's just the abyss yawning out there for you after you're done, but it makes no difference because you determined what you were all about. You say, I guided my life. I did what I was supposed to do. I ran the ship of me, and I am not sorry for that. I'm unapologetic, and whatever the devil's going to be shall be, but I did what I needed to do.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. I didn't understand it really well until I learned it, but some years on I did.
Mm-hmm. It's like some of Rudolph Kipling's If poem that he did.
Yeah. By the way, there's another little thing about the black frats and sororities that the current membership has no knowledge of. It didn't start off for a party thing.
Mm.
The design was that it would look like it was just a Greek organization on the black side for partying and fraternity and sorority and all that stuff. But its true purpose was it was supposed to be an underground series of organizations divided up into 4 masculine units and 4 feminine units to fight segregation in an American version of apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing about being a party frat thing was just a cover. They used to pledge you hard. They'd beat the devil out of it. But you know why they did that? Because you might be carrying an important message or doing something that left a lot of people's lives on the line. And if Sheriff Billy Bob down in Backwoods County somewhere in the South snatched you, and they tried to do you like they did Emmett Till, you could hold up like Emmett Till under the torture and not tell on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
See, Emmett Till, let's talk about him. Old man Withers, who's got the museum down on Beale Street where we were just at a couple of weeks ago, he took the pictures of Emmett Till's body. Well, 2 alphas, one of whose name was A.W. Willis, an attorney, and another one whose name was Russell Sugarman, now a retired judge. They smuggled those pictures out of Mississippi. There were 7 or 8 cars that got shot up, burned up, people got wounded because the Klan folk did not want those pictures getting out. But they got them out of Mississippi on pain of death, and they got them to the governor of Illinois, and he ordered as the governor that the body of one of its residents be returned. So they had to return Emmett Till's body, so everybody found out about the lynching.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what frats do.
Mm-hmm.
And see, it doesn't make any difference whether it's Alpha, Kappa, Omega, Sigma. The idea was you divide it up just like you have in Revolution. You don't put everything in one little cell. You have multiple cells, so everybody can't get jacked up.
Right.
See, that's what it was about. But we forget. We were about the business inspired by W.E.B. Du Bois of the talented 10th, bootstrapping up the race so that for the 20th century, whose primary problem was going to be the color line, would have a group of talented black folk who could bring us up to par. They'd pull us up. It worked for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that 4th generation, they sort of strayed. It became selfish. Not me, just for me.
Mm. Okay. Thank you, Judge Brown, for all that information. It's very overwhelming, but it's definitely impactful. So I want to thank you for your service to our cause. In the words of Great Delta, we love you madly. You keep on producing and pushing.
All right, brother. Yeah, I you get me chatting. You got me for 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 59 seconds. Mark, so let me get off. All right.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Ciao.
Yes, sir.